this right here. This is the one I was
Okay,
about.
it's 6 o'clock.
Right here.
We're going to call this meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen to order. Although you only see 4 aldermen here, we have 2 that are on spring break. Alderman Wicker and Alderman Robinson are on the phone. They're part of this meeting from afar. So if I could have everyone stand to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Miller, could you give our invocation?
Yeah, I just did.
Okay.
Would you join me in prayer? Heavenly Father, Lord, we are so thankful, Lord, that you allowed us another day. We're thankful, Lord, for this great nation, this great country, this great county, and this great city that we live in. Now, Heavenly Father, we ask that you will bless the thing we're about to do on tonight. And Heavenly Father, whatever we do, we pray, Heavenly Father, that you will be pleased. Continue, Lord, to bless in a mighty way. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. There's one item that's been added to the agenda. As y'all know, we opened the bids on the animal shelter at 2 o'clock today. The architect was able to confirm with the low bidder that they were able to do the job and that everything was in order, and he sent us an email to recommend that, and so we are adding that to tonight's agenda. So with that said, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Can I have a motion to approve the docket of claim numbers listed on your agenda?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on item 5. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Next is to approve the minutes from the regular Mayor and Board of Aldermen meeting on March 1st and the special meeting on March 7th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Can I have a motion on item 7, which is the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 8 is the personnel docket. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel docket?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Item 9 is the approval to add and advertise a utility billing clerk position in the water department at City Hall. I know this was something that the city clerk and the public works director had been discussing. Pam, would you like to say a little bit about that and the need for it, or Lee, whichever y'all want to tackle that one? Lee, you want to come up?
Lee is going to have one of the clerks go to his property at Public Works to do the monthly processes, and so we're going to lose one in City Hall.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So what you have there in front of you is a list of Ms. Jan's duties that she handles for us on a monthly basis. She'll be retiring in October, and I think it would be prudent of us to go ahead and hire a new utility clerk so she can be trained properly, so we don't have a big void or any mishaps in our billing or water bills or bank drafts or anything like that each month. Another reason for go ahead and hiring this person because there's certain things that Ms. Jan only does once a month. You know, it's only 6 months now until, depending on when we get somebody hired, 6 months until she's gone. So that would only be 6 months of going through the process each month. And we want to make sure that position is airtight. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and Pam has about as much information as I do. So.
Just so the board is aware, I know y'all don't know all the people that work in City Hall, but Jan has kind of been the lead utility clerk for quite a few years, and there are literally dozens of things she does that are critical, and with her telling us she's retiring, it made us all come together and try to figure out how we would shift her duties around and who we would train and things of that nature.
Kind of just a brief description of what she does. This is nowhere near everything she does. She loads our handhelds for our meter reading equipment. She loads the computer for our radio reads. She does bank drafts, late fees, cutoffs, whether it be ordering carts for people, picking up carts, communicating with Waste Connections on carts that were missed each day. She sends a report out for that. So that's just a few things.
Just one question for
Yes, sir.
clarity, to ensure that we right. You got in here add, but you're really not adding.
No, sir, it's
So,
only
I mean,
temporary.
I want to clear up the language, so the clerk, we're not creating a new position.
Correct.
You want to go on and hire this person early to be properly trained.
Yes, sir.
So I think we need to make sure that the language is correct, that we're not adding a new position.
Correct.
You know, just for clarity.
Absolutely.
With that being said, I make a motion that we advertise for this replacement so this person can be properly trained.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next is the first planning item.
Okay, this is a request to rezone 10.70 acres on the north end of Crossroads North Subdivision from the current R12 single-family residential district, medium density, to the C2 highway commercial district. Now, basically, I think everybody is familiar with where Crossroads Subdivision is. You know, it's located on the southeast corner of Green Tea Road and Highway 51. Now, originally, the entire property was zoned in a commercial planned unit development. And then after several years remaining undeveloped, the property owners proposed to rezone the entire property from the commercial PUD to the R12 single-family residential district. Okay? And that was approved back in September of 2017. Following that rezoning, the then property owners, Crossroads DeSoto LLC, submitted a preliminary plat for Wilkins Subdivision, which was approved in 2018, and subsequently final plats were approved by the Board of Aldermen, constituting phases 1 and 2 of what we now know as Crossroads Subdivision. Now, that only made up for about half of the property. A remaining 34.86 acres of land, including the subject property, was not included in the Crossroads or Wilkins Subdivision preliminary plat. And that property remained undeveloped until 2018. In 2021, Crossroads DeSoto submitted a preliminary plat for a single-family residential subdivision on 30.01 of those acres to be known as Crossroads North Subdivision, which again includes the subject property. The Planning Commission approved the preliminary plat on April 13th, 2021. 4.85 acres located on the actual corner of US 51 and Green Tea was not included in that preliminary plat and simply identified as future development. Crossroads DeSoto then requested to rezone that 4.85 acres from the R12 district to the C2 district, which was subsequently approved by the Board of Aldermen on October 19th, 2021. Creative Constructions, LLC, is now the current owner of this northern property. They own both the 4.85 acres that is already zoned C2, as well as the 30.01 acres that makes up this Crossroads North preliminary plat. Basically, they are requesting to rezone the 10.70 acres in the northern portion of the property from the R12 single-family residential district to the C2 highway commercial district. This would basically extend the zoning, the commercial zoning, from the previously approved 4.85 acres on the exact corner all the way across the north end of the property along the south side of Green Tea Road. Okay? That, of course, will leave right around 20 acres still in the residential R12 zoning. Basically, if this rezoning were to be approved, the preliminary plat would also need to be revised so that, because right now, it of course reflects all of this property, this 10.7 acres as being part of the residential subdivision, so we would need a new preliminary plat in order to correct that if the commercial zoning were approved. Now, the future land use map for the city's currently adopted general development plan identifies the subject property in the single-family medium-density dependent land use designation. This category is to provide for the development of single-family detached dwellings on moderate-sized lots. This category also includes the type of single-family residences known as patio homes, townhouses, condominiums, and zero lot line homes. Single-family medium-density residential developments should be located on collector or major arterial roadways. The zoning classification recommended by the General Development Plan for properties identified in the single-family medium-density dependent land use designation is either the R8 single-family residential district, which is also medium-density, or the R10 single-family residential district, which is also medium-density. Therefore, the applicant's request to rezone the property to the C2 Highway Commercial District would not conform to the recommendations of the General Development Plan, since the plan recommends either of those two residential districts as the preferred zoning district for that single-family medium-density dependent land use designation. I have given you in your staff report the applicant's responses to the three criteria, as well as staff comments. And since you've had those, I'm not going to go into those in any great detail. I would note that, since this is a rezoning from a standard zoning district to another standard zoning district, we're not involved in any kind of subdivision approval at this point. Copies of the R12 residential district regulations and the C2 highway commercial district regulations are included, for your consideration. One thing I always point out when we talk about rezonings is that, you never want to concentrate on what an individual person wants to do, because once a property is zoned, that zoning runs with the land, and if the person decides not to do what they've said they were going to do, then anything that's allowable in the district, like in this case C2 highway, would be allowable, within that property. So you want to be sure that you're comfortable with all of the uses in a particular zoning, when a zoning change is requested. Finally, the Planning Commission reviewed this request for rezoning at their meeting on February 8th, 2022. Following a public hearing and discussion by the Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen of the rezoning request to the C2 Highway Commercial District based upon the findings reflected in the motion to approve that is also in your staff report, and their personal knowledge of the area. The subject property, of course, is the 10.70 acres located east of Highway 51 and south of Green Tea Road. And so in your staff report, you have the proposed motion to approve with appropriate findings. I've given you a proposed motion to deny with appropriate findings. And of course, you always have the option to table the item if you so choose, in case you feel like you need additional information or additional time to consider the application. And that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for BJ before the applicant's representative comes up to speak? If not, would someone like to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Sorry, BJ. George Reedy, 175 East Commerce. I'm the attorney of record for Mr. Patel, who has filed this rezone, and his engineer, Byron Houston, is here in case we have any technical questions that we need him to answer. BJ's done an excellent job telling about the history of this. I would just say, it's coincidentally, I think Bob was involved in this in 2007, and here he sits. So I would point out, of course, one of the requirements you got to do to go is to prove that there's been a change of the circumstances in an area. Well, I would submit to you that the board, the city of Hernando, decided in 2007 that this property was suitable for C2, because that's what it was rezoned for when it was effectively, I believe it may have been done as a PUD. I don't know if Bob remembers, but it originally may have been a PUD where it was all commercial. And it certainly has changed, the neighborhood has even changed substantially since then. So there shouldn't be any question about the change in the nature of the circumstances of the neighborhood, and that a C2 would be a suitable zoning for this property, thus the unanimous vote from the Planning Commission to do that. I would also like to say now, BJ and I have talked about this, and I will acknowledge on the computer where I can go and find the city comprehensive plan. It may be because it's close and the colors are close, right? But it looks like to me that this area specifically is on employment professional services, so a borderline type commercial. I will say that I believe it shows that for future land use too, for the city, and the 269 corridor plan definitely has this as non-residential, neighborhood commercial, or highway commercial mixed use. Now, that's just advisory to the governmental entities that hold the property in there, but that was part of the plan that this city also participated in with the county, all the counties, to how to design the 269 corridor going all the way across. And clearly, there's been just a substantial change in the circumstances out there. We have either commercial, highway commercial, or mixed commercial on all corners, or three of the four corners, the two north corners right now. Mr. Patel, actually, the other C-store in the other corner is Mr. Patel, and you can see the quality of the work that he does by that establishment there. I think it's actually above city requirements for that kind of construction. And I'll just submit, and I think you guys, most of everybody here knows me, and that I just feel like this is part of my neighborhood. Hernando is my hometown. I care how it develops, and it's in the area that I consider my neighborhood. And I personally, and I hope the city, the majority of you ladies and gentlemen agree, that I think that it's good for us to look for smaller commercial corner developments so we can have walking neighborhoods, so we can have the possibility of restaurants, which is one of the planned lots here. So we can have planned retail and small stores and these things, so everybody doesn't have to come to the downtown of Hernando where we've got all kinds of traffic problems now. I actually think this is good for the city. It helps with the use of the roads. It helps with infrastructure costs. It helps generate sales tax for the city. So I hope that everybody agrees that this kind of development is what we're looking for. And that's, whether we like it or not, that's going to be a serious corner, right? AWG is up there. That's going to be the designated route, I think, for the trucks coming out of AWG to get on 269, where they're going to have to come to this corner, go over Mackinville and get on 269 there. So it's going to be, this is an area that's going to develop. This is part of the area that I personally believe in 20 years, the main part of Hernando commercial, retail commercial is going to be on Green Tea and the Mackinville and Getwell Exchange all along there. And I think this is the kind of process that and the place, the kind of development we want on these kind of corners. I'll be glad to try to address any questions or concerns that anybody has.
Does anyone on the board have questions for Mr. Reedy?
Can you hear me, Mr. Reedy?
Yes, go ahead, Alderman Robinson.
Alderman Robinson?
This is Wicker.
Oh,
Wicker.
Wicker.
It's Alderman Wicker, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm better looking than him. You better get that right.
You talking about me or Mr. Robinson?
Some of the concerns I've heard is, traffic flow and things like that. Would it be possible to have some type of, I know with a PUD you could do this, there's no longer a PUD, but maybe like a property owners association with some covenants or something like that?
Yes, sir. In fact, I had talked to Mr. Patel in advance about that because of some questions that came up at the other night on the preliminary plat at the Planning Commission. Mr. Patel is absolutely willing to obligate himself to make, as part of the approval for the rezone, which would then make it binding on Mr. Patel, since it would be a voluntary agreement by Mr. Patel, that he will, instead of a homeowners association just for the residential, he would agree to make it a property owners association, which would then require that the commercial and the residential landowners participate in the landowners association, which everybody would pay dues to, which everybody would be responsible for on upkeep for the common areas. And y'all don't know it yet, but we've actually designed a divider into the road to make it a little bit wider, make it more attractive, and to discourage left-hand turns by commercial traffic into the neighborhood if they tried to come south. And we're rearranging the roads to try to take care of all that. But yes, Mr. Patel will agree to, as part of the rezoning, if it's approved, to have a property owners association and have restrictive covenants, which would then, as for final plat approval, would have to be approved to the city for all building standards.
Alderman Wicker, did that answer your question?
Yeah, would that also address some of the buffers zone concerns I think they brought up at the planning meeting?
Yes, sir, it would.
Yeah. That's all I got. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Wicker, I concur with those concerns, and I think it would be critical if we do approve this tonight that we make that a part of the motion, because it would kind of hold everybody's feet to the fire to help aid in the quality of development there.
And I just observe, if with that voluntary agreement with Mr. Patel, which can be included as part of the approval since it's voluntary, and he would be legally bound by it, that the city would have the final say and could guarantee the standards for the quality of the building, because the covenants would have to be approved to seek approval of the final plat.
Would that agreement transfer if hypothetically a new owner came to this land? Would that
Yes,
transfer?
yes, ma'am, because that would be part of the approval.
Okay.
Since we agreed to it, it would be legally enforceable, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yes, BJ.
I think it would be primarily because, all restricted covenants, which would establish the property owners association, they all have to be recorded down in the courthouse, just as the plat is recorded, and therefore it becomes a legal official document.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Reedy? Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this development? Okay. If not, is there a motion from this board?
Motion to approve the rezoning requested by Mr. J. Byron Houston with Houston Engineering on behalf of Creative Constructions LLC, the owner of the property of a 10.7 acre parcel from its current zoning of the R12 Single Family Residential District to the C2 Highway Commercial District. The subject property is located east of US Highway 51 on the south side of Green T Road and west of Interstate 55 in Section 1, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, based upon the following findings, 1 through 3, and additionally, to enter into a property owner, what's the exact verbiage there?
With the requirement that the landowner would agree to require a single property owners association and submit the final covenants as part of his final plat approval.
Madam Clerk, could you read those back to us? I saw that you were writing that. Not yet?
I'll be glad to help with it tomorrow.
Well, I can get it on.
Oh, you got it on the recording, okay. You want to make his comments part of your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can give you
Okay.
part of it.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
There's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reedy. We will move on to item 11.
Give everybody a chance to clear the,
I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Reedy.
Used to in the Senate, we'd say point of personal privilege, but this doesn't have anything to do with that, but I just wanted to say, because the board gets complaints all the time about city employees, but Lee, I just want to say, under his leadership in that water department, the performance of those guys is unbelievable.
Oh, we know it.
I just want y'all to know that, because there's a lot of leaks and a lot of cracks because of weather and freezing pipes and everything, and they are so responsive and so helpful. I'm sorry, I just had to say that. I apologize for taking your time.
Thank you for saying
Thank
that. We're
you.
pretty proud of
We
that
agree.
department. Okay, BJ.
All right.
Item 11.
on item 11, which is a rezoning of .40 acres from R10 Residential Single Family Medium Density District to the R8 Residential Single Family Residential District Medium Density. We had an email we received today requesting that this be tabled until the April 5th meeting. They have apparently determined what they're trying to do with this rezoning is create two 8,000 square foot lots. Well, apparently they have found through their engineering work that in order to achieve that, the lot lines of these lots would have to come within 5 feet of the rear wall of the old Fred's building. And that's not going to work, you know. So they have asked to table it till April 5th so that they can determine, you know, where they want to go from here, you know, with that. I had a conversation with them yesterday, so my recommendation would be to go ahead and do that.
Can I have a motion from someone to table it till April 5th?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to, there's a motion and a second to table till April 5th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion passes. We will move on to item 12.
Okay. All right. Now, this is a zoning amendment / preliminary development plan approval from the C2 Highway Commercial District to the PUD Planned Unit Development District. This property is located on the southeast corner of US Highway 51 and Southern Street. You know, Mr. Bob Barber is here representing the applicant. Essentially, this is a piece of property. It's not quite an acre. It's 0.80 acres. And it is currently zoned, as I mentioned, in the C2 Highway Zoning District. The applicant's intent is to try and develop this as a series of townhomes. Essentially, 2 buildings with 5 townhomes in each building. for a total of 10. And to do this, they are approaching it, or would like to approach it, utilizing the PUD, Planned Unit Development District regulations. Because obviously, under PUD, you get to establish your own minimum lot size, your own development standards as far as setbacks and so forth. And so that would seem to be more favorable to what they're trying to do here. Now, the future land use map for the city, currently adopted general development plan, identifies the subject property in the mixed-use land designation. Now, the mixed-use land designation has a variety of subsets, such as traditional neighborhood development, neighborhood mixed use, central business mixed use, and general mixed use. The subject property falls within the area designated as central business mixed use. This category is characterized by a mix of commercial, office, public, institutional, and residential uses of varying densities of smaller scale design, typically less than 20,000 square feet. Generally, this designation applies to the town square and its surrounding areas. The zoning classification recommended by the General Development Plan for properties identified in the Central Business Mixed Use Land Use Designation could include either the PUD, Planned Unit Development District, the TND, Traditional Neighborhood Development District, the C3 General Business District, or the C4 Planned Commercial District. Therefore, since the Central Business Mixed Use Land Use Designation contemplates the inclusion of residential uses, and one of the recommended zoning districts is the PUD, Planned Unit Development District, the applicant's request to rezone the property to the PUD district would conform to the recommendations of the General Development Plan. Now then, I have, as part of your staff report, given you the applicant's responses to the 3 criteria necessary for rezoning, as well as staff comments relating to those 3 criteria. I have also given you a quick review of the preliminary development plan. As I mentioned earlier, it will consist of 10 townhomes, which is an attached single-family residential form typically constructed on individual lots with the common interior lot line of each lot running down the common wall between each unit. The townhomes will be divided between 2 buildings with 5 townhomes in each building. The buildings will share a common courtyard between the 2 buildings of 8,800 square feet in size, which complies with the PUD requirement of 10% of the development for common open space. The proposed development will have 1 access point, a private shared driveway running north and south through the property accessing onto Southern Street. This private drive will provide access to enclosed garages at the rear of each residence. The private drive will be a 22-foot driving surface with an asphalt surface with 618 concrete box curbs. A hammerhead turnaround will be provided for the use of trash trucks and emergency vehicles. A 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk will be provided along the rear of the units for internal pedestrian access, as well as 5-foot wide public sidewalks along both US Highway 51 and Southern Street frontages for connections to the city's pedestrian network. The dimensional requirements for the development are listed below, and you will note that they are proposing a 0 front yard setback. So the front of the buildings will be at the front property line. Side yard, 10 feet at each end of each building. Rear yard setback, 35 feet. The maximum height is 50 feet, and I'm going to explain that to you here in just a second. And then the minimum lot size would be 2,500 square feet for each unit. Now, I wanted to mention to you about the 50-foot height. These 2 townhouse buildings will basically be like what you might be familiar with as a building called a split level. In other words, the property, if you've had a chance to drive by there and look at it, is higher in the front than it is in the back, okay? And of course, the rear access is going to be at the very rear property line, okay? So essentially, the first floor on the back side of the building will be the garages, okay? And where the second story above the garage will actually be at the ground level adjacent to Highway 51, okay? So when you look at the building from Highway 51, it will appear to be a two-story building because, as I said, the garage is off, down the hill behind. So basically, depending on where you measure the height from, as a three-story building, the 50 feet, that's how that works into the project. The proposed development has access to city water and sanitary sewer facilities. We have not yet received a copy of any proposed restrictive covenants for the Patterson Road development, and the PUD document contains only the most basic information concerning architectural provisions. We do have, some proposed color elevations of the buildings. The PUD document does state that the units will have a New Orleans influence and does contain a fairly extensive list of materials that may be used in the design of the units. That's on page 10 of your PUD document. The PUD document does not state whether the rear access garages will be one or two-car garages. The PUD document does show some fairly generic landscaping information, but does not go into detail concerning numbers, type, or size of the trees or other plant materials. Finally, the PUD document does not contain any information concerning the location or construction of the cluster mailboxes conforming to the recently adopted amendment to the city's design standards and zoning ordinances. Again, from the staff comments, because this is a request to rezone to PUD, the zoning and the PUD document are considered to be integrated. So in approving the rezoning, you would also be approving the PUD document, which gives you basic design standards for the development. I wanted to mention that because when we get into the proposed motions, you'll note that besides the standard zoning provisions, in an approval or denial situation, in an approval, you also have the opportunity to attach conditions to the PUD document because it is a design document, okay? And we'll go over that here in a moment. One of the things that does need to be clarified is that the applicant stated in his presentation to the Planning Commission that Patterson Road development would be based upon individual lots with the interior lot lines running through the walls, common walls separating the units. And there is a reference in Table 2, dimensional requirements to a 2,500 minimum lot size. However, the preliminary site plan does not identify these individual lots, nor does the PUD document identify this as a condominium project, so it should be clarified, that this is going to be that kind of a townhouse development. The applicant also stated in this presentation to the Planning Commission that the minimum heated floor area for the residences in Patterson Row would be 2,300 square feet. However, the PUD document states in the first paragraph of Section 8, Townhome and Site Design Details on page 10, that the minimum heated floor area will be only 1,850 square feet. So again, this is something that needs to be clarified. One thing that I did want to mention, and I'm sure that the applicant will go into this in more detail in his presentation, but want to be sure that everybody involved understands that where the PUD document discusses the adjoining water donation property, but that's not considered part of the PUD zoning. Because that water donation property is actually city property. The city owns that property. So I want to be sure that nothing that is done here would somehow obligate, what the city can do with their own property at some point in the future. So that's just something that needs to be addressed. The common driveway reflected on the plans, as I mentioned earlier, will be a private common driveway for all the residents, since it does not meet the width requirement for a public street. However, a condition of approval should be included stating that although the drive does not meet the city's dimensional requirements for street construction, the construction specifications for this drive shall meet city requirements for street construction. In other words, depth of gravel or soil cement, the amount of asphalt and so forth should meet city requirements. Finally, the Planning Commission reviewed this request for a rezoning at their meeting on February 8th. Following a public hearing and discussion by the Commission, the Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen of the rezoning request to the PUD Plan Unit Development District and the submitted preliminary site plan based upon the findings reflected in the motion to approve below and their personal knowledge of the area. So, moving on to the proposed motion, as you can see, it has the three criteria with appropriate findings for approval, and then starting on page 6, it also states and approve the preliminary development plan subject to the following conditions, and essentially submit a revised PUD document addressing the following items, and prior to submitting a preliminary plat for any portion of this development, because that would be the next step. Once this is approved, next step would be a preliminary plat and then final plat, just like a normal subdivision. Submit architectural elevation, proposed building conforming to all requirements of the design standards and identifying specific materials and colors. Revise the PUD document to include a specific statement that each residence will be located on its own individual lot, and the development shall consist of 10 individual lots for individual sale. Revise the first paragraph of Section 8, Townhome and Site Design Details on page 10 to state that the minimum heated floor area for each residence will be 2,300 square feet in size. Revise the Townhome and Site Notes on page 10 of the PUD document as follows. Note that the size of each residence will be the minimum heated finished floor area. Note that corrugated metal, smooth finish wood, vertical board and batten siding, and random width cut wood are permitted for use only as accent materials. Revise the note concerning street trees to reflect that they will be planted 35 feet on center to comply with the requirements of the design standards ordinance. In the PUD document, if you haven't noticed, they do reflect them as being 50 feet apart. Our design standards ordinance requires street trees to be 35 feet apart, so we're just bringing that into conformance with our ordinance. Revise the PUD document to state that the adjoining water donation property is not part of the requested rezoning, that should the rezoning be approved, such approval will not restrict or otherwise obligate the city in any way concerning the disposition, use, and development of the city's water donation property. Revise the PUD document to specifically state how and where detention or retention will be provided, if required. Revise the PUD document to state that the construction specifications for access drive across the rear of the residence shall meet the city's construction specifications for public streets. Revise the PUD plan to reflect the sidewalk from the front of each residence to the public sidewalk along the right-of-way of US Highway 51. Submit with any preliminary plat the proposed location of the cluster mailbox site that will serve this development, along with a proposal for construction of the cluster mailbox structure conforming to the amendment to the city's subdivision regulations recently adopted by the Board of Aldermen. Then you have some specific provisions regarding restrictive covenants. And then homeowners association to be established prior to the recording of the final plat. Any buffer areas, retention basins, landscape areas, open areas, street medians, entrance signs, any other common elements proposed to be dedicated to the homeowners association in that phase shall be deeded over to the homeowners association with the recording of the final plat of that respective phase, a copy of the finalized incorporation papers, and all deeds transferring common elements to the homeowners association shall be submitted to the staff for inclusion in the file. And then from item number 13 through item number 23, those are our standard subdivision type conditions. With that, that would be the motion to approve. You, of course, have a motion to deny with appropriate findings. And then, of course, you always have the opportunity to table the item if you feel like you need additional information or additional time to consider the request. And that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions of BJ before the applicant's representative speaks? Not? You want to come up, Bob? And in between, I do want to read something. If y'all will notice item 11D, the Planning Commission had made their motion to include a provision that none of the residential lots could be used for rental purposes. Our city attorney is not here tonight, but he sent me this written statement I feel like I need to read. It says the issue has come up regarding the decision by the Planning Commission to require the developer of the Highway 51 townhouses next to Kilgore's to require a no rental policy as a condition of plan approval by the city. After reviewing the issue, it is my opinion that the city cannot legally place such a requirement on the developer. The HOA, of course, could decide to place such a restriction on the property. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you tonight to present Patterson Row. Thank Mr. Page for a very thorough report. Patterson Row represents an infill development, an extension of the square, so to speak, going south down Highway 51. Just briefly, hopefully my clicker will advance. Yes. Just to briefly acquaint you with, you're already acquainted with it, but to display Patterson Row and discuss some of its characteristics and attributes. The presentation with the site context and history, the actual design of the development, City of Hernando planning, how it guides this particular site, and then the changes in the neighborhood that justify the proposed rezoning. First of all, the site context and history, just an illustration here. This is it's a 0.8 acre site, and it's located, as you see in yellow on the bottom of the slide, is the site. The water donation, as was mentioned, is next door. The city shop is just to the north there. We're about 1,000 feet south of the town square, straight down 51, and right on the corner of 51 and Southern Street. Just a little expansion of the site that's actually superimposed on an aerial photograph of 1958, I believe, which is the earliest aerial photograph. And then fading into the most current aerial photograph we have, 2019, I believe, with the county, showing some of the changes in that area and how it's grown over time. There are some homes on that site now. They are in extremely substandard condition, and I believe there's 3 there. The site will redevelop that. So as you look, and you drive that way every day, I'm sure, or every few days, you'll recognize the context. There's a convenience store directly to the south of it. And then you see the various other views to the northeast and looking northeast from across the street, and looking, the top left looks into the site itself. And then there's some more photographs, this would be on the east side. This is actually standing in front of the water donation. And by the way, the water donation, as y'all, I'm sure you all know, it's an important historical feature of Hernando, because when the original town plat was created in 1832, I believe, water donations were provided as a public permanent water source. That's why they call the water donation. So it's interesting history. That is looking to the west. Well, you see where it's looking south, so forth. The culvert there is actually on the water donation site itself. So you're sort of looking into the site, and you'll see one of the old homes in the lower left there in that photograph. And just one more, I think that's all it is. Everybody's familiar with the surroundings of that site. So it is the goal of Mr. Davis, the developer, to redevelop it as a high-quality townhome development known as Patterson Row. This slide shows where it's located in the comprehensive plan, and Mr. Page went through that. It complies with the comprehensive plan as in the future land use category. The development itself is, you'll see it on the site, it is 10 individual lots, to be clear about that. And so they're individual lots with townhomes for sale to be constructed there, and there's a little larger blow-up of it looking down on the townhomes. And then that last fade in is the architecture itself. So this is the rendering of the units that are being designed and constructed. There are 10 of them. They're 2,300 square feet for the record. We'll adjust that. And the 2,300 square feet heated. This looks from the Highway 51 side after the site has been redeveloped. There are some key design features that are in your master plan, but the architecture will be constructed as you see it here. Another shot from Highway 51, and then this is the rear, looking from the water donation site into the rear of the proposed townhomes there. So the bottom floor is garages, and the upper two floors are the living space. And you'll see it does, the second floor is even with Highway 51. So that's Patterson Row. There are changes in the neighborhood to justify that. We just detailed several here. The bright yellow dot being the site. I called out all the eight. I won't go through list all these, but everywhere there's an orange dot, there has been some zoning change or some shift in the nature of the land use. There have been three other developments, Macklemore's townhomes. Mr. Kimberlin is building some down by the old ball field where the track is, and then Dale Wilson is just north of the town square here. And we appreciate the city attorney's opinion that was read earlier. We would request that condition be removed. These are not intended to be rental units. They'll be for sale. They will be on the upper end of the price scale. They are not intended for renting, but I use the example if perhaps I wanted to purchase one and then rent to my daughter or some circumstance like that, we would not want that option to be taken off the table. And none of the other three developments that I just mentioned were, rentals were excluded in those to my knowledge. So we would ask for that request. Otherwise, we're fully on board with all the various master plan adjustments that were read.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Barber?
I guess in your document, Mr. Bob, I guess you'll make some correction on page 4 on the policy 6.
That is straight out of the plan, but yes, sir, it
It's
does
not correct?
maintain 51 Memphis Street corridor south of the Green Tea Road area. I would say that would not be correct.
Page 10.
Yes, sir.
Did you make the correction on the size
Yes, sir, we will. There'll be 23.
on page 14?
Yes, sir.
On 1411? You see what's in there that need correcting?
Yes, sir, we'll correct that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, pointing that out. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I do have a question when it's appropriate.
Go right ahead, Alderman Wicker.
So I know that we said we could not restrictive from being rentals, but is there any intention, Mr. Barber, to have a homeowners association in place for those 10 properties?
Yes, sir, there'll have to be an association to maintain the common spaces and then the private drive. Yes, sir.
And do we have the ability to maybe make a part of our motion to have a covenant that prevents rentals? Is that possible or legal?
Not according to the statement that Stephen Pittman sent to me prior to the meeting.
So that would be determined by whoever draws those homeowners association covenants up, I guess.
Yes, sir.
You'd have to,
Okay.
you'd have to
'Cause,
create.
you know, we're not, he does a great job, and those properties will be fine, but my concern is 10, 15, 20 years down the road, what happens to them? And I'm still going to be living here now just like everybody else, so I want to make sure that stays a nice piece of property, so
BJ?
maybe he can,
Not looking to necessarily speak in favor of the application or opposed to the application, but one of the things that was discussed at the planning commission meeting, think about it, we're talking about units that will be 2,300 square feet in size. In terms of the cost of building those units, we're talking about something that's going to sell, probably in the neighborhood of a couple of $100,000 a piece. If someone did choose to try and rent one, you'd be talking about rents that probably run anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 or more dollars a month. So I don't really think, in terms of the concerns that we have about rental properties and lack of maintenance and so forth, I don't really see that being a problem.
The only thing I would disagree with you on is in the current market, those are probably going to be closer to $350,000 sales.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not
Yeah.
talking about something that, expect people who would treat things poorly. I mean, certainly anyone who owned one, wouldn't want anyone in there that would treat it poorly.
Yeah. And I guess I will offer up, I would venture to say that looking around, I am the person in this room that lives closer to these townhomes than anyone. I literally sit in my sunroom and will see them out my back window. And I am not opposed to them being rentals one day.
I guess I'll be next then.
You would probably be the next closest.
On the maximum height at 50 feet, is that, I'm assuming, coming from the back side of the building, correct? It wouldn't be
Yes,
a
sir.
front elevation of
It's
50
not,
feet?
no, sir. The front elevation would be the 2 stories and then the roof pitch. It's allowing for the backside where the garages are because you got an extra floor there.
Based on this image that's up right now, there's street parking. Is that something that will be added? Is that something that can be done on the 50?
We're hopeful to do it. It'll be ultimately an MDOT judgment, but we're hoping to provide the same kind of environment that we see on that Highway 51 side of the square. Where
Right.
you have some street parking with just an extension of that streetscape right on down.
And I will say that we've recently had something come up. If y'all know where the Entergy building is being built north of License Drive, they were having a little trouble with MDOT giving them permission to put a sidewalk in the right-of-way. And our highway commissioner, Caldwell, called the chief engineer, and we got that cleared up, and they're now able to put that sidewalk in the right-of-way. And so I think we have an advocate to help us on that.
Yes.
But as of right now, we can't say that they will allow the street parking.
We don't have official permission to do that. We've designed it to do that and designed it based on the precedent that's here and they're okay with. I guess there's a chance they would say no,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
we think we will be able to generate that environment.
Any other questions? Is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? Any other questions or concerns from the board? If not, does someone have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the rezoning requested by Mr. Bob Barber on behalf of Mickey Davis, the property owner, requesting a rezoning preliminary site plan approval for an 0.80 acre parcel from the current zoning in the C2 highway commercial to the planned unit development located on the southeast corner of US Highway 51 and Southern Street in section 13, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, based upon the finding that's listed. Also, with the preliminary, subject to the following condition 1 through 11 and 11D being deleted, and then from 12 to 23.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. BJ, you want to present the next item?
Okay.
Item 13.
I'll give Bob a minute. All righty, now we get to more simple matters. This is a request for a final plat approval for Section A of Oak Grove Subdivision located north of West Oak Grove Road, west of Scott Road, and east of Oak Crossing Drive in Section 15, Township 3 South, Range 8 West. Basically, this is a final plat approval. The preliminary plat for this subdivision consisted of 8 total lots. And of course, this being Section A consists of 5 residential lots and 1 common open space lot. Basically, these 5 lots run along the frontage of Oak Grove Road. They're all, the property is currently zoned in the A agricultural district, so they're all larger than an acre and a half. Basically, the 3 lots that are not contained in this final plat, but will be included at some later date in a Phase B, will be behind these frontage lots. 1 lot has a small bit of frontage on Oak Grove Road. The other 2 would be accessed by a private access easement on the eastern boundary line of the subdivision. But as I said, those 3 lots are not part of this approval. It'll just be the 5 lots along the frontage. Basically, Section A consists of 10.72 acres with 5 lots varying in size. Lot 1 will consist of 1.95 acres. Lots 2 through 4 will consist of 1.97 acres each, while Lot 5 will consist of 2.84 acres. All the lots will have direct access to West Oak Grove Road. All the lots will have access to public water and sanitary sewer services. Common open space lot number 1 will consist of 600 square feet and is proposed as the location of the cluster mailbox for the development. Common open space number 1 has direct access to West Oak Grove Road. Although common open space number 1 would also have access to the north-south ingress-egress easement reflected on the eastern boundary of the previously approved preliminary plat, neither the ingress-egress easement or the 2 lots that the easement will serve are being platted at this time. Each lot will have to meet the development requirements of the A Agricultural District, which is a front yard of 50 feet, side yard of 15 feet on each side, rear 35 feet, and a minimum lot size of 1.5 acres and a minimum lot width of 100 feet. As proposed, the Oak Grove subdivision meets or exceeds all the development requirements of the A Agricultural District. We have received a copy of the proposed restrictive covenants, which we included in your staff report. I gave you a quick review of those in your staff report, so I'm not going to go over those in any great detail unless anyone has a question. Although we have received information concerning the location of the cluster mailbox site, we have not yet received any proposals for construction of the cluster mailbox facility itself as required by the city's recent amendment on this subject. Additionally, although the applicant has submitted an exhibit reflecting how the cluster mailbox would be oriented relative to the ingress-egress easement, it does not appear to meet the requirements of the ordinance, nor how people pulling off West Oak Grove Road would get turned around to access the mailbox or exit back onto West Oak Grove Road. The Planning Commission reviewed this request for a final plat approval at their meeting on March 8, 2022, finding that the submitted final plat generally conformed to the requirements of the subdivision regulations. Therefore, the Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen, subject to certain specified conditions listed in the proposed motion. Now, in the proposed motion, we need to submit a revised final plat to the planning staff for review and approval prior to recording of any final plat for this property, to correct the title block on pages 1 and 2 of the plat to read Section A of Oak Grove Subdivision. In regards to the declaration of covenants, revise Article 8, Restrictive Covenant, Section 2, Item I, adding to the end of the item the words Planning Commission. Same with Article 10, Amendments, Section 6, adding to the end of that section the words Planning Commission. Item C, revise Article 8, Restrictive Covenant, Section 3, Item S, to add a statement that no such additional and/or separate restrictions that may differ from lot to lot shall be approved by the developer unless such additional and/or separate restrictions have previously been approved by the City of Hernando Planning Commission. And then revise Article 8, Amendments of the bylaws of the Oak Grove Subdivision Homeowners Association to add a provision stating that no amendments or other changes may be made to the bylaws by either the association or the developer unless such amendments have previously been approved by the City of Hernando Planning Commission. Basically, the reason for most of these amendments is that the way the covenants are currently set up in the proposed draft, the developer who maintains control of the subdivision until basically all of the lots are sold and all of the houses are substantially complete, also retains the power to either change the covenants at will or to establish different provisions for individual lots on a unilateral basis. And what I am saying in these amendments, obviously the city does not enforce restrictive covenants, but what I'm saying is that if you want to change them from what we're looking at today, that you must seek approval to do so. Basically that means if you show us, as we just got through discussing in the previous item, if you show us 2,300 square foot today, you're not going to come around the day after the plat's recorded and change the covenants to read 1,800 or 1,200, okay? Those changes have to come back to the Planning Commission for approval. Then, of course, a homeowner association to be established prior to the recording of the final plat, and everything involved that needs to be dedicated to the homeowners association to be done so with the recording of the plat, and submit a copy of that quitclaim deed to the office for the file. Prior to the recording of the final plat, the applicant shall submit full construction drawings for the proposed cluster mailbox facility to the planning department staff for review and approval, conforming to the requirements of the amendment adopted by the mayor and board of aldermen concerning cluster mailboxes. So basically what the planning commission has said is that, our amendments concerning the cluster mailboxes are fairly clear. Either you have them or you don't. And so the Planning Commission is recommending to delegate that authority to the staff, and that we will not record the plat until we have seen those documents and approve them. And then from that point on, it's our standard subdivision conditions. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
I have a question for the city engineer. Do we have water and sewer all the way out to that site available?
We have water.
So what are they going to do about the sewer?
Well, we do have sewer, don't we have sewer in Weatherby?
Sewer in Weatherby.
Okay, so they would have to extend something from Weatherby, wouldn't they? You think they?
I mean, that would be how they could do it. Fortunately, they sit, below elevation wise.
So it'd probably be a lift station type situation?
If they had sewer, they'd have to have a lift station.
Okay.
Yes. Nick, did you want to stand up and speak on behalf of the application? Yep.
Let me get out of the way.
So I guess the question just arose, what are y'all going to do about sewer out there?
On-site sewer. Since these are 2-acre lots and meet for on-site sewer, our plan was just to do on-site sewer.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't have anything else to add, and all the conditions are good with the applicant.
Okay. And I know this is just 10 acres, but we're probably going to be asking this question for every subdivision from here on out. Where is the water from those lots going to flow to?
To the ditch that runs kind of across the backside of these lots.
Okay, so they'll kind of grade to the rear?
That's correct.
So you won't be putting any more water out by the street to speak of?
No.
Okay.
It'll all drain to the rear, which it does now. So.
Okay. Yes, BJ.
One thing I did want to mention relative to the sewer question.
It's just on the backside of that.
The reason that I included that requirement in the proposed motion is because that's what our ordinance requires.
It requires sanitary sewer?
Now, the board, of course, has the authority to change or waive any requirement. Suggest that that's not the case, but I don't.
Right.
So I have to tell you, that's what the requirement is, but then you, of course, have the opportunity to say that on-site sewer
This is a ditch.
Joe, can you advise us from an engineering perspective on your feelings on the sewer issue?
That's me.
Well, since the lots are the size they are, I mean, they would be, the health department would approve a on-site system for each lot. I don't know that we have any plans out that away for sewer down Oak Grove Road.
When's the last time we approved a development in Hernando without hooking on to city sewer?
Well, the lot's right across the road from this subdivision, I guess, was the last time. Of course, those are bigger lots across the road.
Okay. BJ?
Just trying to be the monkey in the wrench here. But it's my understanding that a developer is looking at proceeding with, I guess it's called Weatherby West, or Weatherby north, you know, north of this property, you know, this property is basically, or was originally about 70 acres or maybe 120 acres in size. And I think Mike Bailey got the north half of it rezoned to planned unit development a few years back. He was going to call it, I think, Weatherby West.
Okay.
Okay. I've had some contacts from a developer seriously looking at developing that subdivision. Is that, Joe, do you know anything about that? Have you heard anything?
Developing the north part?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a
Does that put a different spin on it at all?
Not really, I guess. The part you're talking about will have sewer, will have water and sewer, and be smaller lots.
That's all I want.
Okay, thank you, BJ. Any questions from the board? Is there anyone here, any citizens to speak for or against this development? Any questions or a motion from the board?
Motion to grant final plat approval for Section A of Oak Grove subdivision, a 6-lot subdivision consisting of 5 single-family residential lots and 1 common open space lot on 10.72 total acres, located on the north side of West Oak Grove Road, west of Scott Road, and east of Oak Crossing Drive in Section 15, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat conforms to the previously approved preliminary plat and generally conforms to the requirements of the city's code and ordinances, subject to the following conditions 1 through 13.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye. Oh, yes, sir.
Before you take the vote,
Hold on. Before we vote, BJ wants to say one more thing.
well, I just want to clarify something. You know, we just had this whole discussion about whether or not they would be allowed to have treatment systems. If it is your intent to approve on-site treatment systems, you need to adjust item number, item number 7, which requires the installation of sewer mains and service. Just need to scratch that part.
First sentence.
On page 4.
It's item 7 on page 4.
Okay. Do we just need to take out sewer mains and service?
Yeah.
Are you amending your motion, Alderman Piper?
Mayor, I'd like to amend my motion to delete sewer mains and service from item 7.
Alderman Piper has amended his motion to delete sewer mains and service from item 7. Does the second still stand?
Yes.
Okay, there is now a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you. Item 14 is next, BJ.
This is request for final plat approval for the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Juanita Acres Subdivision, 5th Revision, redividing Lot 1 into Lots 1A and 1B. Now, you might recall Juanita Acres, it's out on Hall Road on the south side of Pleasant Hill. In fact, we just addressed a final plat to eliminate a 50-foot wide, or excuse me, a 25-foot wide right-of-way that the board had already eliminated by order, and we did a plat revision a few months back to take it off the plat. In this particular case, Lot 1 is being divided as part of an estate. Basically, between two heirs to the estate. There will be a lot, 1A, that has an existing residence and a detached barn, and will consist of 1.5 acres, while Lot 1B is currently vacant and will consist of 3.41 acres. Both lots have direct access to Hall Road, as well as access to centralized water services through Nesbit Water Association. Sanitary sewer treatment for all of the lots in Juanita Acres are provided through on-site individual treatment facilities. The subject property is located on the west side of Hall Road, as I mentioned, south of Pleasant Hill. This property is in the AR residential, agricultural residential district. The requirements there are 50-foot front yard, 15 feet on each side, a rear setback of 40 feet, minimum lot size of 1.5, minimum width at the building line of 90 feet, and maximum building height of 35. The way the lot line has been cut through Lot 1, the existing residence and detached barn located on Lot 1A will continue to meet these setback requirements. So we won't be creating a violation, by the subdivision of the property. Again, this is a final plat approval. The original Juanita Acres subdivision was approved by the DeSoto County Planning Commission back in 1969, and subsequently by the Board of Supervisors in 1970. There are no restrictive covenants for Juanita Acres. They were not recorded either separately or on the face of the plat at that time, nor have any covenants been recorded since then. So there are no issues relative to that involved. The title of the currently recorded plat for Lot 1 is the fourth revision of Juanita Acres subdivision. The title of the proposed revised plat reads Division of Lot 1 of Juanita Acres, fifth revision. However, this is not a revision of the entire Juanita Acres plat. Okay? This is just a re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Juanita Acres, fourth revision. Okay? So that really needs to be corrected to keep the land records straight. Planning Commission reviewed this request for final plat approval at their meeting on March 4th, 2022, finding that the submitted final plat generally conformed to the requirements of the subdivision regulations. Therefore, the Commission voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Aldermen approval of the final plat, subject to certain specified conditions listed in the proposed motion below. Basically, we need to revise the final plat to address the title, as I mentioned. We need to correct note number 5 on the plat to state that there is a 10-foot wide utility easement on the rear property line of all the lots, and we need to revise the plat drawing accordingly. We need to revise the plat to include a mortgagee's certificate if necessary. And we need to revise the owner's and mortgagee's certificates to state our current language dedicating the right-of-way of the roads and the utility easement specifically to the city of Hernando. From that point on, it is our standard subdivision conditions. Now, considering the discussion that we just had at the last application, the thing to keep in mind is we do not have sewer in this area, and all of the lots have on-site sewer. Okay. We also, being that this is an AR subdivision, Hall Road does not have curb and gutter. It does not have sidewalks anywhere on that subdivision. Obviously, being approved back in '69, that should tell you a lot. Okay. That being the case, you may wish to consider adjusting item number 4, which includes our standard, as I mentioned earlier, our standard requirements of our ordinance for, water, sewer, gas, curb and gutter for the streets, gravel and soil, cement, etc. So Basically, in light of the existing situation on the property, I think you could probably get away with eliminating both 4 and 5.
Altogether, or just amending it?
I think altogether, I mean, it's not an issue of, the drainage pipe, for example, would be addressed through the building permit if they built a new house on Lot 1B. Erosion and sediment control is also handled through the building permit, when that takes place.
Well, it does talk about the blacktop, the layer, the thickness of that, so I don't.
Right, but we're not looking at building any roads relative to the subdivision or widening Hall Road. I mean, certainly, we wouldn't, widen just the frontage of 2 lots.
Right.
And not widen all the rest of the street. I guess my concern about this particular subdivision is that since it was developed in '69, everything out there is pretty much built out. I mean, we may have a few other little subdivisions, kind of like what we're doing here, where there might be a lot that's divided into 2, but I don't really see the opportunity to gain, substantial improvements, to Hall Road as a result of future development. Because, like I said, all the lots are pretty much developed. But anyway, that's just my opinion, and certainly you as the board can decide whatever you want to do on this.
Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the developer? Yes, sir.
Good evening, I'm Carl Goolsby, 905 Waterford Place, South Haven, Mississippi. The property was left to my wife and brother-in-law from my late father-in-law. His wishes was for us to be able to build there. My wife and I's intent is on Lot 1B would be our new home and, of course, attachment building. So that's our intent. The area, as Mr. BJ just said, it's an older subdivision. It's kind of based on rural. I think we've got natural gas put out there on that street in the last 10, 11 years in the past. City water has been there as long as I've been in the family, 21 years. But yes, there is some blacktop paved driveways, such as the one on the property adjacent to it, which would be Lot 1A. It has asphalt drive. Several other neighbors on the street have gravel drives. Our intent is to pave or concrete ours, but we would not like to have that required immediately, for we are trying to build this.
Okay. Any other questions while we've got him up at the podium? If not, can we have a motion?
Motion to grant final plat approval for the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Juanita Acres Subdivision, 4th Revision, 2 lots, 4.91 total acres, located on the west side of Hall Road, south of Pleasant Hill Road, and more specifically known as 1341 Hall Road in Section 30, Township 2 South, Range 7 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat approval generally conforms to the requirements of the city's code and ordinances, subject to the following conditions. Revise the plat as follows: 1 through 3 and 6 through 10.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes.
Thank y'all.
We look forward to you building a home, becoming a part of Hernando.
Thank y'all. Have a good evening.
BJ, you want to present item 15?
Getting my exercise today. Okay, this is a request for final plat approval for Sochet Point Commercial Subdivision, in case anybody was wondering how that's pronounced. I guess if you're a redneck, you'd call it saucer. But anyway, it's Sochet Point. The purpose of this is just a one-lot subdivision, okay? Basically, what happened was some folks were looking at building a convenience store on this property, which is currently zoned C2 Highway Commercial, so that would be allowable. We found in the course of our review of that building that the lot had never been platted. There had actually been a plat drawn up some years ago, but we couldn't find any evidence that it had ever been through the approval process, and it had never been recorded over in the county courthouse. So it was something that we needed to get taken care of, because under our current ordinances, we cannot issue a building permit unless it's on an approved lot. So that's the whole purpose behind this application. As I mentioned, it's C2, which is a front yard setback of 50 feet, no side yard setback, a rear setback of 20 feet, minimum lot size, none, minimum width, none, maximum building height, 35 feet or 2 stories. So the proposed lot, which is 4.04 acres in size, would meet or exceed all of the development requirements for the C2 district. Planning Commission reviewed this request for final plat approval at their meeting on March 8, 2022, finding that the submitted final plat generally conformed to the requirements of the subdivision regulations. Therefore, the Commission voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Aldermen approval of the final plat, subject to certain specified conditions listed in the proposed motion below. In the proposed motion, we need to revise the plat to revise the various certificates to read 2022 rather than 2021. We need to correct note number 7 to note that the side yard is 0 feet rather than 10 feet, and that the utility easement along rear property line is 10 feet, not 5 feet. We need to revise the plat to include a 30-foot wide landscape buffer easement along the eastern property line, and we need to finally revise the owner and mortgagee certificates to use our current language relative to the dedication of roads and utility easements. Then from 2 on are our standard subdivision conditions. Now, I would note that even though this is just a one-lot subdivision, this is in an area of town where we do have curbs and gutters and sidewalks and so forth, so the standard improvement conditions would apply. So that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions? Are there any citizens here to speak on this issue? Yes, sir.
Robbie Jones with Jones Davis Associates. I ain't got anything to add to this.
Okay, you're representing the applicant?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, sir.
As the mayor pointed out in his discussion earlier, we're hoping that we get a better.
Contingent.
Okay. Any other questions? Can I have a motion from the board?
A motion to grant final plat approval to the Saucier Point Commercial Subdivision, 1 lot, 4.04 total acres, located on the southeast corner of US Highway 51 and North Parkway Street in Section 12, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat generally conforms to the requirements of the city's code and ordinances, subject to the following conditions: 1A through D and 2 through 9.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Item 16.
I have to say, I really like it when Robbie represents stuff, because he always agrees with me. All righty. Our last item, well, I shouldn't say our last item, because Kendra does have one other item after this, but we have a request for final plat approval for the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Boone Subdivision, first revision, redividing Lot 1 into lots 1A and 1B. Again, this is similar to the issue in Juanita Acres. Keyshawn Bacchus, who is the owner of the property, is requesting to divide Lot 1 into Lots 1A and 1B. 1A is currently vacant and will consist of 1.875 acres, while Lot 1B contains an existing residence and a detached storage building, and will consist of 2.818 acres. Lot 1 will have direct access to US Highway 51, while Lot 1B will have access to both US Highway 51 to the east and Old Highway 51 to the west. Both lots will have access to centralized water services and sanitary sewer services. The subject property is located on the west side of US 51, south of Green Tea Road and north of Crossroads Boulevard, and is more specifically known as 237 Highway 51 South. This is also in the A Agricultural District, which has a front yard setback of 50 feet, side yard of 15 feet on each side, rear yard of 40 feet, minimum lot size of 1.5 acres, minimum width at the building line of 100 feet, and maximum building height of 35. The existing residence and detached barn located on Lot 1B will meet these setback requirements, and both proposed lots meet or exceed the development requirements of the A district. Again, similar to Juanita Acres, the first revision to Boone subdivision was recorded in July 18th of 1995. No restricted covenants have been recorded either separately or on the face of the plat, nor have any covenants been recorded since that time. The title of the currently recorded plat for Lot 1 is the first revision of Boone subdivision. The title of the proposed revised plat reads Second Revision of Boone subdivision. However, as I mentioned earlier, this is a revision to the specific Lot 1 rather than a revision of the entire subdivision plat. It would seem that the title of the revised plat should be the Resubdivision of Lot 1 of Boone subdivision first revision in order to keep the land record straight. Planning Commission reviewed this request for final plat approval at their meeting on March 8, 2022, finding that the submitted final plat generally conformed to the requirements of the subdivision regulations. Therefore, the Commission voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Aldermen approval of the final plat subject to certain specified conditions. First, revise the title of the plat, correct the notes concerning building setbacks on the face of the plat to state that the side yard setback is 15 feet on each side, not in total, and that the rear yard setback is 40 feet, not 20 feet, and that the side yard requirement is 35 feet, not 15. Revise the plat drawing to label the utility easements along the western property lines of lots 1A and 1B as 10 feet, not 5 feet. Label the utility easements on the property lines accordingly. Revise the plat to label the street to the west of Lot 1B as Old Highway 51. Revise the plat to extend the 50 feet building setback line along US Highway 51 to the northern property line of Lot 1A. If you look at the subdivision plat drawing, you'll see that that 50-foot front yard building setback line only goes part the way up and then stops before it gets all the way to the north property line. Relabel the plat as a final plat, not a preliminary plat. Correct the zoning district label on the plat title to the A Agricultural District, not the R12 District. And if the existing access on Lot 1B to US Highway 51 is also intended to provide access to Lot 1A, then add an ingress-egress easement on Lot B to Lot 1A for that purpose. If you happen to look at the aerial photograph, the second aerial photograph, which is a little bit larger and perhaps easier to see, there is an access for the existing house, an existing driveway, onto Highway 51. And it also appears that there is a second drive that kind of angles to the north. It's kind of hard to tell under the trees. And basically, since accesses onto Highway 51 have to be approved by MDOT, if the intention here is for both lots to use the same access onto Highway 51, the plat will need to reflect an ingress-egress easement to that second lot so that it can legally get to the driveway. So that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions for BJ? Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application? Yes, sir. Is there anything you want to add to what BJ said? Or
No, I have no additional comments.
does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bacchus? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to grant final plat approval to the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Boone Subdivision, first revision, 2 lots, 4.69 total acre, located on the west side of US Highway 51, south of Green T Road, north of Crossroad Boulevard, and more specifically known as 327 Highway 51 South in Section 1, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, based upon the finding that submitted plat generally conform to requirements of the city, codes and ordinance, subject to the following condition 1 through 10.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Bacchus. Item 17.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. The applicant, ETI Corporation, is requesting that the public improvements for the Lee Summit Planned Unit Development Phase 4, Lot 7 final plat be installed at the time of construction. This is a final plat that was approved by the board at the January 18th meeting of this year. It is a 1-lot subdivision for Century Express Car Wash to be located on the east side of Mackinville Road. Following board approval of the plat, subject to the conditions required for a subdivision, ETI Corporation contacted staff about the procedure for recording of this plat, and at that time it was explained that the public improvements, in particular items listed in number 4 under the final plat approval conditions on page 3 of the staff report. So the developer shall install drainage pipe, erosion control materials, sewer mains and service, water mains, fire hydrants, etc. Those would need to be installed prior to the plat recording. So at that time, ETI asked if these improvements could be installed as the car wash is being constructed. And due to our platting standards and the procedure for platting, which is within our city's subdivision regulations, obtaining board's approval for this request was warranted, and that is the purpose of this request from ETI. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Do we know where their access, their entrance, exits, and all that are going to be?
At this time, no, that would be determined. We have what is a certificate of development review that is required. And so at that time, we would review that and determine that also with city engineers review.
Because that's Mackinville, that's a very busy road.
With
Right.
Taco Bell.
Right, I mean, they have a common drive and they could access from the back. I'm just worried
I
about.
think that drive was put in place to be a common drive for that next lot. Wasn't that the
Okay.
plan originally, Joe?
Think so.
You know, when you're going into Taco Bell, it goes into kind of a wide throat, and then it just goes off to Taco Bell to the left.
Right.
I think the idea was it would go off to the right for the next lot.
Okay.
So we don't have multiple entrances.
Right, I didn't want another exit or entrance onto
Off of
Mackinville.
Mackinville Road.
Right.
Go ahead, BJ.
As Kendra pointed out, we have not had an official certificate of development application yet, but I have seen some preliminary drawings for the car wash.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to, in saying what I'm about to say, I have to emphasize it's not an official application at this point. But the preliminary drawings that I have seen reflect 2 access points on the joint driveway. In other words, no accesses on the Mackinville.
Okay.
But there would be one, close to Mackinville that goes into the property east-west, and then comes around into the car wash and then comes back out on that joint driveway. So
Okay.
everything would be on and off that joint driveway.
So they're not showing a new curb cut on Mackinville?
No, not in that, as I said, in that preliminary drawing that I've seen, it was not reflected as including a Mackinville driveway.
And to further cloud things, Joe Frank, I'm going to look to you for some history. I know at some point, that lot's kind of there at the top of that hill on Mackinville. And years ago, when Lee Summit was getting developed, we had discussed that later on in the development, that hill might be taken down by the developer of Lee Summit. I don't know that anything was ever put in writing, but what should be done there? Is there anything else we need to do besides what we're doing tonight?
You're right about, I was looking at that hill several years ago, and I don't think we ever decided that if we were going to do that or not. I mean, obviously, he'd have to do his part there, and then, of course, then the city would have to finish the existing road, taking that hill down there.
Okay, and we don't have any money budget or any current plans to take that hill out ourselves, so. Okay. Any other questions? Is anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
I'm Matt Wolf with ETI Corporation in Memphis, representing Century Car Wash. I think that covered it, but I'll try to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Y'all have any questions for him?
Well, I mean, nothing's been
Right.
actually,
No, we've not submitted anything as far as a site plan, because right now it's just a subdivision plan. So we're trying to bring them all together so that we don't go through 2 review processes, 2 mobilizations, 2 demobilizations, all that, which drags out the construction of I guess about a 1.5 acre lot, so.
right. It's just a little bit of a dangerous area like that with that hill there, so that was a concern of mine,
Absolutely.
because that's a busy street.
Well, right now, like he mentioned, the Taco Bell drive it's a shared drive, so 1 lane of it is on their property and 1 lane is on ours, and that's our access point.
Okay.
Are there any citizens here with concerns that wanted to speak to this topic? Is there a motion from a board member? Yes, BJ.
If I may. We have, of course, the standard provision in there, concerning, submission of a performance guarantee in the subdivision contract. In light of their request to construct the improvements and the building at the same time, I would recommend that you include a condition that the final inspection and occupancy of the car wash would be subject to completion of the improvements. Make sure that everything gets done in a timely fashion.
That sounds fair.
We have the bond, which is our primary lever, but that just gives us an additional lever. So interesting.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
Just trying to think of the way to word it.
Are you wanting to kind of like revise maybe number 2? It says improvements are to be the responsibility of the developer, not the responsibility of the city of Hernando upon final approval. I mean, how exactly did you want that to be worded?
Yeah, say that. Okay, I move to grant final plat approval for Lee's Summit PUD Phase 4, Lot 7, 1.6 acres, based upon the findings that the submitted final plat generally conforms to the requirements of the city's codes and ordinances, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 10, with the final occupancy permit to be granted after confirming completion of all required improvements. Okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Okay, we are 17 items through a 31-item agenda. Would someone on the board make a motion to recess for 5 minutes, just for a stretch before we resume?
Sure.
Motion to recess.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to recess for approximately 5 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will be right back.
Natalie.
Back in session. We have both the other aldermen on the speaker as well. We're going to restart with item 18. This is the approval to sign the vendor agreement with Mid-State Opportunity, Inc. as the agency to provide assistance to eligible low-income households to pay home water and wastewater costs. This group got a grant, and they have money available for low-income people who are having trouble with their water and sewer bills. We just have to sign on to say we're willing to take the money from them and go through a small process, and that would enable people in bad situations to get some help from them to help pay their water and sewer bills. So can I have a motion to approve the signing of that vendor agreement?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, as y'all know, the Board of Supervisors are building a new Justice Court building near the jail, and they had asked us to waive the fees and charges for the water meters and taps, water and sewer taps out there, and the county helps us on a lot of things, and I thought this was a small thing we could do to assist them in the moving of the courtrooms.
So move.
What's the dollar amount that we're waiving?
It's about $8,000 total.
That's a
Now,
lot.
part of that was DeCrua that would have passed right through, I think, $1,000, so probably about $7,000 we're waiving. That would have been ours.
So why are we waiving $7,000?
Well, we're trying to be good neighbors with the county. They help us on quite a few things. As a matter of fact, we have a new building inspector right now who is actually riding with their building inspectors and getting free training. And we do lots of things like that with the county. I like to keep that relationship good. They help us and we help them. And this is obviously a legal thing we can do between local governments. Did I have a motion? We had a motion from Alderman Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the motion passes. Next is item 20. Due to the cancellation from state contract vendor Landers Dodge of all of the 4 ordered Dodge Chargers for fiscal year '22, we're requesting authorization to purchase 4 Dodge Charger police cars from the Missouri Highway Patrol in accordance with Code Section 31-7-13. These are 3 2019 models for $21,000 each and 1 2020 model for $23,000. This is not ideal. We've been working very hard towards keeping new cars coming into the fleet so we have lower maintenance costs, but there are simply no cars available. So for this year only, we would like to request just to purchase these from the Missouri Highway Patrol, these used vehicles.
And I could say, Mayor, that every vehicle that we have got from Missouri Highway Patrol down through the years has been good cars.
That's right.
Right, Chief? Yes, sir. I mean, they have, so it might not be ideal, but for what we're going through now and what we went through in the years back, this is well-spent money, and we'll get our money worth.
What did we have budgeted before for the ones that we're having to?
Chief, can you speak to that?
Yes, ma'am. They were 28, however, they were V6 model, simply because they were not making the V8 model this year, so these are V8 models with all the 8,000 markets.
Okay.
Can I have a motion on that item?
Does this come out of capital outlay for?
Yes,
that
this is
department?
capital outlay from the police department. And this was a budgeted item.
Yeah, it was budgeted.
And y'all had already approved the purchase of the new cars.
That's
And we're
right.
just coming back to change gears since we couldn't get them.
That's right.
So move.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Joe Frank, could you come up on item 21 and update us on the bids we received for paving of some of our streets?
Okay. A week or so ago, we took bids. I think think it amounted to about 10 streets that was on our list. And our low bid was American Services, $511,000 roughly, and the other bid we got was from Lehman Roberts was $1,077,000. So that looked pretty good, looked real good there for a while. Then the low bidder informed me that because of the oil crisis, that the asphalt plant would not honor the price that he was given when he gave us the bid. And that he would not know a price until after April the 1st, when they start the Hernando plant back up, and determined because of the oil crisis and the amount of oil it takes and asphalt and everything to do the job, that he asked that his bid be rejected. So I guess I've got a little list here about, I guess what we can do. Obviously, we could reject it and rebid. He doesn't really want to do that if he can settle some type of price from the asphalt plant. I guess we could hold this over for a month and let's see what happens. And then the mayor and I have talked about, he's given us a bid. Do we need to go to the Attorney General and ask his opinion because of the bid and because of the crisis in the oil situation? Just a few things unknown right now about what we'd like to do. His bid is good. It's within the money. Feel sure if we bid it again, it's going to be a lot higher. So that's kind of where we stand.
I think last time we went through this, I think the mayor can remember that it was just the opposite. We had a contract already for asphalt with a company, and they came in and asked us to up the money, but we rejected because we had a contract in place, and so I think that we can hold this for 30 days and renegotiate on the price.
And I think my question, Alderman Miller, was that since they have already given us a bid,
well, we haven't
accepted it, but my question was, since they've given us a bid, can they withdraw it?
It's not binding, no.
And we don't have a city attorney here to ask.
Well, I'm just saying, until contracts are signed, nothing is binding.
You're right, that's a good point.
We have no contract in place, so.
They want to keep the bid.
I think the only thing that we could do prudent for the city while we go and answer other questions is to table this for 30 days and then come back and revisit it. And then that way we're outside the April 1 date. And then if he give us something, then we can reject everything at that time. But I think prudent for the city is not going out right now and rebid, but to table this for 30 days. And then while you still pursue the question and answer that you desire, Mayor, I mean.
Okay. Joe, was the low bidder Riley Paving or American Services?
American Service.
Okay.
That's Bruce Pruitt's company.
If we table it to the April 5th meeting, do you think that would be too soon? Do we need to table to the April 19th meeting?
He said April 1st he'll have some numbers. Well, that would be 30 days. I mean, that would be 30 days, wouldn't it?
We can look at the 5th.
Not quite.
It'd be the second meeting, being like you said.
Yeah, so
Second meeting.
second meeting, April 19th.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody want to make that
I
motion?
think we're still in agreement, I think, that, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we table this until, our April the 19th meeting.
Yeah.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to table item 21 till the April 19th board meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is item 22, the approval for a change order for Riley Paving for Notting Hill crack sealing for $12,000, which will complete all crack sealing of Notting Hill.
Okay. Jimmy Riley was overdoing Notting Hill and asked about the final 3 roads that we needed to do over there, and I told him, you know, kind of why I had to wait on that, because that would have made that project run over $50,000. Actually, the way he bid it, it would have been real close to that amount. And he says, well, I will finish it for you for $12,000. So that still keeps me under the $50,000, and I had estimated that that part would cost about $14,000. So he's actually saving us about $2,000, and he would go ahead and finish the job.
Any questions on that item? Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, item 23 is the approval of the change order for the street to New Age Logistics Street construction. That is the street that is being constructed to go into the Associated Wholesale Grocery Warehouse, the west side of Capic Drive. So, Joe, would you like to present that item?
Okay. Gave you a little handout there to kind of go by as I go into asking for a change order to increase the amount of dirt that I need to finish the job. But anyway, when we first met with them, we started out with a street that was going to be 36 feet wide of asphalt pavement. And everybody kind of agreed out there that wasn't going to work, so that they'd rather have a concrete street. And so it was decided that if that was the case, we need to put in sidewalks. So if that was the case there, it needed to be curb and gutter. So we went from a 36-foot wide street, paved street, to the street you see pretty well finished out there now, concrete, curb, and they will come back and put the sidewalk in. They have a bond for that amount. So somewhere between my estimate and my bidding, I did not have enough in there for the dirt that was needed to create this cross-section that you see there on your first page, at 11 feet behind the curb and a 3-to-1 slope. So the existing contract, of course, came in at $643,516, and I needed a change order of $125,000. So that would put the contract at $768,516, and I had originally estimated at $921,504. So if you look there on the second page, you can see the whole budget there for the $3.2 million that we are spending out there on the project. And then I printed you out, this is not an official schedule of the income off of taxes that everybody's going to receive, but it's somewhere in the area. And you can see where this money is coming from to pay off the $3.2 million that the whole project cost. You can also see there that that big building you see out there, the value of that building, and then on the second page of the tax schedule, you can see that everything inside the building is worth more than the big building is. So they have a lot of automated equipment in there that gets taxed. You can see there that their property taxes, what's paying for all the improvements going on out there. The road, the sewer, and then the work up at Green Tea Road that's next to do.
So what you're saying is we've got a cost overrun from what they bid, but it's still going to come in under the budget we had estimated.
Yes. You can.
And Joe, right, you know, we delayed, sidewalks on the, I think it was on the north side of that road. You know, when they supposed to install the sidewalks at the time that they constructed the first building, and then we delayed, when they were gonna put the sidewalks in, based upon, once that building is completed, then putting the sidewalks in on the north side. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I figured out a bond for them and told them what it was going to cost.
So when we're talking about sidewalks and things, they actually picking up the cost of the sidewalk, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, I just want to make that be part, because that was one of them negotiating things where we didn't have it put in at the beginning, but we're going to do it on the back end. We took bond money for that, so.
I was to furnish them this cross-section you see there on page 1.
Thank you.
That would accommodate their sidewalk.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, can we have a motion to approve the change order?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Next up, Joe has provided us with some drawings and estimates for different type intersections at Mackinville and Holly Springs. This was a discussion we started at the last board meeting, and this is a continuance of that discussion. Joe, if you'd like to go ahead.
I mentioned last time that we had a study done. The last study done was done by Pickering. That's the two handouts you've got. One was with the roundabout, and then the other was with the, I call it maybe a three-way stop there, where you've got to provide turning options there for 3 different ways of turning in that intersection for people.
It's amazing that the money came back so different.
Gonna be a change in the way you go through the intersection if you go to the 3-way stop method.
Well, the 3-way stop's going to have traffic stopping going, I guess, south on Holly Springs, going toward the curve, and you have to stop in order to take the left into the curve.
Yeah.
And that's just, that slows down the traffic flow. It's going to back up traffic with all the increased building that we have in the county. I just think the building, I mean, the traffic flow would make more sense with the roundabout, as long as it would accommodate the transport trucks and the fire. We have a fire station right there, number 3. The fire trucks. As long as the plans would accommodate the large trucks and the fire trucks.
Well, the traffic that's going west on Holly Springs, it has its own dedicated lane on this drawing, but like you say, everybody else will have to stop. People heading south on Mackinville there, they'll have to stop. Actually, they don't show enough lane there to provide for all the traffic you're talking about that's trying to go south. And and east.
Is this in the roundabout, is it like a double lane roundabout?
Double lane, yes. Fortunately there's, the intersection is big already. I mean, that helps us out.
Does any of it utilize that extra lane that's right in front of Toyota?
Will the roundabout?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, so that would just be that far lane of people going on that outside circle of the roundabout.
That's right.
To go straight on to Mackinville, or go on around to go east on Holly Springs.
Yeah, you'll have two lanes. You actually have that lane and then another lane.
Okay.
As you go around the round, one lane, your lane that you're talking about would head south.
Okay. I mean, we know it's not, we don't have the budget for that, for this, anything, either one this year. But it's something that, it's an improvement that we're going to have to look at.
I've got, Joe, I know the southeast corner has a potential for development, and people have actually been talking to our planning office about it, about putting in a convenience store there. If we approved for a future road, approved a roundabout tonight, would that affect how they add lanes that they are obligated to when they do their development? Or would it be helpful to us to go ahead and let them know we're doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Before they put in a lane that we might have to rip out and it wouldn't make any sense?
Yeah. They're still adding another lane on Mackinville and the curb on Holly Springs. But to do a roundabout, I would need some more radius on their property rather than the stopping part of it. So that would affect it if I would know it is a roundabout.
Okay.
They're supposed to have already started that project, so I'm not sure why they hadn't started.
So these proposals, it don't have, nowhere in here about land acquisition. Because we don't own enough land to do a roundabout. Am I correct?
Okay, it's got some, number 9 takes care of that inside part of the roundabout, the northeast corner that I need.
That's just a small amount you need there for right away.
What, the 7,000?
The what now?
What are you saying?
Yeah, the $7,000 figure.
We have 40 feet there from the center line of the curve in the road, so, as it is now.
Well, it looks like that same item is also on the three-way stop. Is that?
It is. It takes care of that, even on the three-way, takes care of that dedicated lane that you see. If you're going west on Holly Springs Road, you have that dedicated lane that you.
So we'd have to acquire land either way?
Either way. You have to have a little bit of land on that northeast
We don't
corner.
know if land to do none of that.
I've also, last Friday, got some plans for development of south of Monteith there, about halfway to this intersection. So
Do we need to table it?
that will
until
help
we get
some too.
more?
Not, with the other lady there, I would just say that anything that's coming up in that area, that we make sure to develop, know that we have plans to do something in that area, either one of these, and so they can marry up the plan, so we won't have to redo some things.
Well, the more we start putting on those two corners, the more traffic issues we're gonna have.
No, I'm agreeing, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We just need to make known our plan, that we do have plans to make some changes in that area, so whatever changes they have to make, that change can be lined up with the changes that we have to make. That makes sense.
Yep, it does. Jill, will you make sure you touch base with the people on that southeast corner there? And the new one you got, to make sure that their road frontage plans would align with what we're talking about.
You're leaning toward the roundabout?
Feels like we are.
Well, I mean, it's a difference of $20,000,
And
right?
it seems like it would function a lot better than the other plan.
I think the traffic would flow a lot better.
Yeah, one's gonna have to have two directions of traffic stop to make an act. And I just, for as many years, if people have just flown around that curve or, you know, that would be, I believe, a wreck waiting to happen as it already is right now. So I think a roundabout would keep a better flow. It'd keep a constant flow of the traffic always. But my biggest concern in any of this is the fire station. And first and foremost, and then secondly would be those big transport trucks at Toyota that come in and turn around to unload.
Yeah. The radiuses would be designed for large trucks, wouldn't they? Okay.
I mean, it's moving in the right direction. I mean, it's.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up.
I think with this being this would be a first for the city to have one of these, so the communication would be paramount as it's developed out, that people understand what to do when they're entering it. Get, you know, police and fire with their social media savvy to do videos, you know, best practices, you know, all that kind of stuff, just to boost the social media presence of it and communicate those things. Like, I think it'll be really, because there are some people who have gone through roundabouts before, some people that don't like them because they've never been through one, or don't like them because they went through one once, you know, but.
Yeah, there are lots of videos out there that show how to use one and who has the right of way that we could put on our social media and help with.
Well, you're not going that fast.
No.
Through one anyway. I
That's
mean, at
a-
least
you're
you
like
shouldn't
five
be.
Like 5-10 miles an hour.
You're not, I mean, you're not supposed to go that fast. You're gonna fly over the edge.
Okay.
But, you know,
Is there any more discussion on this item? If not, I don't think there was a decision that needed to be made or a motion. We can just move on to item 25 if y'all are good with it. Joe, do you want to show us this? I know the board had talked about part of our paving plan being the soccer field parking, and you have gotten some input from the Parks Director about parking, and y'all have come to a conclusion that this would probably be the best design that we have in front of us.
Okay.
And the thing I had asked that we do, and I hope the board will concur, if we paved all of this, I think it might bust our budget this year. So I'd ask Joe to consider breaking it into sections, have the whole thing bid so we know what it costs, but do some of them as alternates. So once the bids come back in, we can stay within that budget, and based on direction from the Parks Director and Joe Frank, we could pick which sections we were actually going to do first in this year's budget. But I think we need to bid the overall plan just so we know what it's going to cost. And it could be that we get shocked and it comes in under bid, but from what we're seeing, that's probably not going to happen.
Okay, so I can tell you in the range of 600,000.
For the whole thing?
That's a few years.
Yeah.
Now, there's 300 parking places on there. I mean, now, obviously,
It's not the number of parking places, it's just the amount of money. I mean, just, you know, come on, how much do we have in our road budget now?
I think we had budgeted 300,000 for this.
Yeah, we had talked
Yeah.
about 300,000 in here, yeah.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute, let me look on.
I think we have about 900 at the moment.
I don't know how much, Joe, do you know how much we've used so far? Because we started with 1.2 million, and then we had said we might add a little more for this.
We hadn't did no work with the,
Yes, there's been some work done.
I'm talking about, some, but not,
Well, we had some things come from last year that overran from last year. The motor scooter stuff's gonna get expensive.
well, what I'm saying, though, we really, in totality, looking at the budget, we really hadn't did that much
Right.
towards road and stuff, because number one, we was in the wintertime.
Yep.
So we couldn't do nothing. The plants were closed. I mean, so we really,
Yeah. Joe, can we get together between now and the next board meeting and show what was budgeted, what we have spent, what we're anticipating to spend, so when we come back at the next meeting, we can update everybody?
Okay. You know, we still in the money we haven't spent it for motor scooter drive,
But we're obligated to it.
so we're obligated. Of course, we got to decide on old 51 up there, how much we're going to do on it. We didn't exactly decide on that, other than just repairing it. But we'll get together on, we've got numbers for all that work.
So I guess for tonight, we can go ahead and authorize to bid this out, so at least when the bids come in. Joe, what are some good break points on here to bid it as alternates and, or?
Oh, we've spent.
Well, I mean, it's, kind of ask for a new parking area as you come in, and the parking area to the very south, the way I understand, is really needed. Maybe not that leg up to the north, maybe that's not real important right now.
I agree. If we could, like, for example, I guess that where that crosswalk is, right at that, you have the parking area to the south, that first row that goes by the Magnolia Lighting and Craft Beer Station fields. There's a crosswalk right there. That area could be Area 1.
The new parking lot and then the ones on the north side there?
Mm-hmm. Area 2 could be more of that concession stand space. Area 3 would be the single spaces going by the Moga Fields and the double rows and Cove at the furthest south part of the facility. That would just, I mean, that's just my ballpark. That makes sense.
well, America, before y'all get together and do a phasing plan, you know.
Oh, yeah. If y'all just authorize us to put it out for bids.
I mean, just do that,
yeah.
yeah.
We can certainly do the phasing plan on our own, as long as y'all authorize us to go out for bid.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to authorize to advertise for bids on soccer parking lot improvements. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Okay, item 26. As y'all know, today we opened bids on the new animal shelter. And just to remind everybody, we had budgeted up to $900,000 out of the city budget. Part of that was money left over from a bond issue, and part was going to be in the form of a loan. And the low bid and best bid, as authorized or as suggested by the architect who has reviewed it, and he has called the company and made sure they were good on their pricing. The total with all of the addendums from Cerberus comes in at $869,523. So that is the bid that has been looked at and recommended by the architects on the job. We had 4 bids come in, and that was by far the lowest. And it is a local Hernando-based contractor. Anybody have comments or suggestions or questions?
My question is about all the alternates. I'm not quite sure about accepting all of those tonight. Is that something we can do? Like maybe like the service road, not yet. Possibly the dog kennel doors, which may affect the fencing price as well. All the 2 through 4, can we hold those back?
Joe, I'm going to look at you since our city attorney's not here. and I'm guessing it might be up to the contractor who's not here at the meeting tonight, if he would hold those prices for us or not. But Joe, can you tell me what's customary when accepting bids with the addendums?
Usually says that he has to hold any price on there for at least 60 days.
Okay.
Negotiate with him after 60 days. Will he hold it longer than 60 days?
That's helpful.
And how much money do we have budgeted?
900,000.
So this come in up under 900, so I, respect to disregard, I think we should, go on with it.
Well, the only thing is we looked at that service road and that, we didn't really need that.
That was the one that goes down alongside the building?
Alongside the building.
I would like a little bit more of a cushion. I mean, I think our main focus is to build the building. I just would like a little bit more of a cushion in case things end up being higher than, cost.
They're going up.
I mean, we just changed for an overage it just happens a lot. I don't want to go over our 900,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but we got a cushion in there of $30,000.
And just so everybody's pretty clear on what these four are, the one that says Main Road, that's a strip of asphalt and the parking spots in front of the building where you would park literally as a customer or an employee at the building.
So we have
The
to have
service road was one that went down the side where you could take deliveries. The dog kennel doors are those automatic doors that would let an animal out into a run. They're remotely operated. And the fencing is not just fencing, it is the concrete kennel base with the fencing. That would be outside of those doors, just so everybody knows exactly what we're talking about on the addendums.
Well, it's like install the fencing, gates, hardware, and additional concrete pads is how the bid was done for the alternative 4.
Now, everybody concerned, concerned about money, and I hope y'all have that same concern when we get to the next item, that we deal with money.
Well, that's one of the purposes.
I want to be that cost efficient when we get to the next item. We're concerned about taxpayer money and overrun.
I definitely am, for certain.
I know I am too.
We can talk to that item when we get to it, for
Well,
sure.
that's what I'm saying. I'm concerned about being a good steward of taxpayer money.
Absolutely, I am as well.
Me too.
And I think with this project, I mean, we have I think, pushed it down to as far as we can push it. I think it's time to move on.
I still think that we can take away the service road, because that was an alternate that really isn't needed. But the main, like Natalie said, the main road is you have to have that. You have to have that.
Yeah.
For the parking and around the building. And I know it maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but, $14,000 is something that would go towards something else.
Yeah, I agree.
Alderman Robinson and Alderman Wicker, do y'all have any comments on this item?
Yeah, just my personal opinion. I mean, it's no secret. I think the next item we're going to vote to move this thing somewhere else. So why don't we just get rid of all those alternates and just take the building, and then we can rebid all that stuff out at a later time.
Oh, it's already done.
That was Alderman Wicker, I believe.
Oh. Already done.
Any other comments or concerns? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this issue? Any of the citizens? Yes.
My name is Dennis Hicks from 1151 Howell Way, and I am full support of, we do need a dog kennel. I have been there a couple times donating crates and stuff. And you'll see with the group behind us, our biggest concern is now is the change of location that we just got wind of.
That is the next item on
And
the
that's what I
agenda.
said, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we are in support, I think, of doing the
Okay.
kennel. But we do have concerns about the other part.
Gotcha. And I'll invite you back up when we
Thank you,
get to that line item as well. Thanks for voicing your support of the kennel itself. Any other people like to speak on the animal shelter itself being built?
Do what?
Past his bedtime. Mustn't miss supper. He's really mad.
We can feel you, believe me. This has been a long night.
Well, would anybody like to make a motion on this item on the acceptance of the lowest and best bid?
So move. Put it to the vote.
Alderman Miller, what is your motion,
To accept the low quote,
including all of the addendums?
869, 523.
Okay, there is a motion to accept the entire bid with the alternates of $869,523. Is there a second on that motion? I'm not hearing a second. I'll wait another couple of seconds for that. Is there a second on that motion?
Now, if we don't second it, we can bid for another alternate, right?
You can make any motion you want to if this one dies due to lack of a second. So I'm not hearing a second. This motion is dying for lack of a second. Is there another motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to remove alternate 2 and accept the remaining amount in a total of $855,563.
There is a motion to accept it with the exception of alternate number 2. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote on that.
Alderwoman Lynch,
Aye.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Wicker,
No.
Alderwoman Ross,
Aye.
Alderman Piper.
Aye.
And that motion passes. So we will be accepting the bid with the exception of alternate number 2 with Cerberus.
You're saying the service road?
Without the service road, yes. Without service road. Everything else got approved tonight. Okay. And so the next item.
That is huge.
The next item is number 27. This was tabled from March 1st about the purchase of another piece of property for the animal shelter. That piece of property the board's been talking about, as y'all know, is approximately 3.7 acres due north of the city public works shop. And it doesn't have an address assigned to it, but it's basically down in Whitfield Cove. It lies between the Copperleaf subdivision to the north and our public works building. So would someone like to?
At a cost of what?
$150,000.
At a cost of $150,000. Addition to what we just spent, $150,000, correct?
That is true.
In addition, we already done spent $85,000. I want you to add them numbers up. We already done spent $85,000 on site preparation at the existing location. Well, not at the existing location, but at the location, not in Renaissance Park, but on city property, city-owned property. So we spent $85,000 in preparation for this animal shelter. So everybody concerned about money, but it's okay to spend another $150,000 and leave $84,000 on the ground. I just gonna see being a good steward. And that's all I want to say for the record.
Okay.
And I'm
Thank you,
through with the
Alderman Miller.
discussion. But I want those in the record that we done spent $85,000 on city-owned property. And now we thinking about, I'm gonna use the word think, so I'm gonna be real nice. Thinking about spending an additional $150,000 for 3 acres of land that we don't need no 3 acres of land to begin with. Public Works don't need additional land because we're good for 10 to 15 years down there. So the additional property, we just be buying additional property to have. And I want that to be part of the record.
Madam Clerk, will you make sure that becomes part of the record?
So to me, one of the challenges with the location on city-owned property adjacent to Renaissance Park is that a road would have to be constructed to it. All of the subdivision regulations that we have as a city, the city would have to meet those. You're talking about a quarter mile of road that would need to be constructed that would probably cost anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000. Okay, all of those things would have to be completed as we're building an animal shelter. That is an additional cost that is far greater than the land purchase we're talking about. From the current animal department / police budget, $50,000 would be coming from that portion of the budget. $100,000 would be coming from the utility fund, because 2/3 of the land would be designated for public works use, and 1/3 of the land would be designated towards animal shelter.
We finna take, I'm just asking a question now, I'm just asking a question for clarity. We finna take utility fund money and buy additional property, and that might send people taxes up and everything else on water and sewer. I'm just heard this. I'm just heard that we finna designate and take money from Public Works to pay for some land that they don't need. I mean, I'm learning something tonight,
So
but thank you, Alderman Piper. Thank you.
That is what I am proposing. It was my solution to being responsible with our taxpayer dollars. The utility fund is there's revenue that's generated with people that live inside the city and people that live outside the city as well, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So there's been no discussion of any kind of rate increase or any kind of tax increase at all due to this. Public Works is going to continue to grow. So the investment on this piece of land, while you may feel it's not needed, is land cost going to be lower or higher 5 to 10 years from now if Public Works does need that land? I mean, I feel like land costs are going to be higher at that point. So we're making a sound investment and trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
And I believe we're getting the land below appraised value.
I think that was Alderman Robinson saying he thinks we're getting the land below appraised value, and I don't know that we've had it appraised yet, but that's probably a correct opinion.
To me, you all additionally have within that Whitfield Drive, you have retail property, commercial property. There's other things that would draw people to that area currently, right now. As soon as the building is built, people go down into that cove to do commerce and business or whatever else. And they're going to say, well, animal shelter's down here too. I'm going to swing in there real quick. Might be time to, adopt a dog for the kids. It may be the time to do it now. Where this other location is, there's not much to draw them in currently. There may be one day, potentially, but, to me, it seems like that is a location where we can build, have all of the infrastructure needed at a lower cost.
Let's revisit with our city engineer, the property that was donated to us. Let's revisit what's going to have to be done to that. On top of the 1/4 mile road onto it, the city did pay for some grading and some dirt work on it to the tune of $84,000. How much more work is going to have to be done to that lot in order to build? And, I mean, we just voted on just the building and the parking and some fencing. We didn't even add in the road and more dirt work to prep it when it's a different grade and quality soil. So with all that being said, what else would have to be done that we probably are not going to have the budget for compared to another lot that's a different grade? Just for people to know the difference between the two lots. And what more is it going to cost us to prep that on top of the $84,000 that we've already spent as a city and part of the budget that was already set aside for the animal shelter?
Can you speak to that, Joe?
You want a number? I think we said it was gonna cost at least $125,000. Because now we've got to pave 1,000 feet of road to get from where the road stops to the animal shelter. So today's prices, that's about $35,000
Additional
to pave, the gravel part.
to get to where the building's going to be built.
1,000 feet right there.
And what prep work, additional prep work is going to have to be done to that lot in order for the building to be built on it, do you think?
Not a whole lot. That's a small amount right there. We'll have to tie the building into the sewer line, which runs real close there, and then we've already run the water down there, so.
I mean, that's the biggest thing is we're talking money.
Hey, so did I hear this correctly? It's going to cost an additional $135,000 just to get a road to the Renaissance Park?
35.
35,000.
35,000.
All right.
And that's the pay.
That's about a quarter mile to pave the quarter mile.
It's about 1,000 feet, and takes that, we just figured it up right here. It's about 230 tons of asphalt. Today's price is about $140 a ton, so.
I know there are citizens here that would like to speak. If y'all could come up and limit it to exactly what you want to say. First person come up and just state your name and address for the clerk.
Can I ask one more question before we
Yes,
start?
you can be coming on up while Alderman Lynch talks.
So, just taking out Whitfield Drive, just looking at Renaissance Park, just only, if we use that pad for something else down the future, how is that wasting the money that we've spent?
And you also got to build a road on Whitfield Drive.
Well, but that wasn't my question.
No, I'm going to say that a pad is specific for a building. You build a pad specific for a building. That pad was built specific for a certain size building. All right, if you do put another building there, that building has to be that same size.
Mm-hmm.
Have to be the same size.
Well, I mean, eventually, the whole lagoon area would need to be raised up to the same level that the current pad is to create whatever we want to put out there, whether it be a
depending on what you're building.
a ball field, or anything. So what I'm saying is, how is it wasted if we do utilize it in the future?
I'm concerned because the money that we already spent that's on the ground, and we're finna go spend additional money. That's my point of wasting.
That's true.
That's
But
just
it's,
not been because we don't spend that money. It's there.
right.
Now we're finna go spend additional money and building that building up there. It's gonna have additional costs too, on the pipe. But you got to build a road there too. You got to build a road there too. And if that land was so valuable, it's amazed me if if it's, land is so valuable and expensive, why that land hadn't sold now? You know, but that's just my opinion. I'm gonna stand firm on that being a good steward, once I think that we don't spend city money on something, I think that we need to go through with the project. And I respectfully disagree with you, and we move on. But I still, you know.
But being a good steward is still using it for future.
But you don't know what you're gonna use it for. That's speculative. That's speculative. You don't know what you're gonna, we don't have money to build another building. And by that time, that pad that we build for one thing, it's gonna cost more money, because who will know what'll happen, you know, like Alderman Piper said, 5 or 10 years from now. I'm talking about right today. That's all I'm concerned about right now. I ain't concerned about right now, but because this was some years in the process. This didn't just happen overnight. We didn't get to this point overnight.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But we want to take in 2 weeks' time, take and move everything. And that's where we are. And I think we're doing the people a disservice. That's just my opinion, man.
Okay. I think we're going to hear from the citizens for a little bit. Yes, sir, if you'd come up.
Dennis Hicks from 1151 Howell Way, live in Copperleaf. My biggest concern right now is for us as a subdivision next to the dog kennel. Where I live now in Copperleaf, I can hear the kids playing at the soccer field, which doesn't bother me, because that is not all night, every night, 365 days a year. But, so I know if we can hear the kids at the soccer field, this is closer than the kids at the soccer field. So we'll be able to hear the dogs barking at night whenever they're brought in or whatever. And before I moved to Hernando, when I first moved up here before I got my job, I would stay in Easy Days Campground a lot, which is right next to the South Haven dog kennel. Or say next to it, you got the RV Super Center between us. And you could hear those dogs barking a lot. So I know we should probably be able to hear them. And then there's one other thing that I think is going to factor into the dogs barking, is we have a train that runs back there. And there's a road that has been, I'm assuming it's officially closed, between the soccer field and Copperleaf Subdivision. But not all the conductors know that, because we still have one or two that wants to blow the horn all the way through the subdivision coming through for that road crossing. So I think the biggest concern that I have is just the noise that we're going to have from in the subdivision next to us there. You know, especially when it starts reselling, you start selling houses. Well, we looked at this house before, but now that they got we hear all this problems with the dog barking, you know, I'm not sure we want to live over here now in this subdivision. And that may not happen, but that's always a possibility, or a concern I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Yes.
Thank you, Alderman Miller. My name is Janet Gallimore. I live in Arbor Point. My address is 1187, what is my address? Pettigrew, 1187 Pettigrew Drive in Arbor Point. And I'm in agreement with Alderman Miller. I'm a little puzzled why this is just becoming news to our subdivision, that this is a proposal. It seems to me like that should have come out, so that if you're talking about putting a animal shelter, which I'm all in favor of, a great animal shelter, but it's backing up to a subdivision, why we didn't know about this before, well, actually, I didn't know about it until 2 days ago. So I don't know how long this has been discussed with, you know, amongst yourselves, but why hasn't, 2 days?
2 to 3 weeks. 2
to 3 weeks. Yeah. So we haven't had any chance to process it. And I'm very concerned about the noise factor and the resale value of the property. And I will, just today, and I'll just make it real brief, but I pulled up this website. It's a foundation that works with probably cities, but municipalities that are putting in animal shelters. And I'll try to read as fast as you do. I don't think you probably.
Try to practice.
That's why we need you read.
Every shelter is different in the amount of noise they generate. Since the majority of the animals you will be sheltering are dogs, You will want to pay extra consideration to facility design and enrichment tools that will decrease barking. Typically, the better the welfare of the dogs and the less time spent on daily activities such as cleaning, the less barking you will have. Regardless, in general, we recommend that your shelter not be built directly adjacent to a residential area. If building in an open area, consider the intended use for surrounding land to ensure that you are not building a shelter in an area that will later be surrounded by homes. That's really crucial to us as homeowners. And I think as far as our, what are the value of our homes going to be down the road with this. And I have been to several animal shelters. I've never been to one that backed up to a subdivision. Not a subdivision that there are $300,000 homes in. And then the only other thing that I'm going to tack onto this is, did you know that the sound levels in animal shelters regularly exceed 100 decibels? And just to put that in perspective, 95 decibels is comparable to a subway train, 110 decibels is a jackhammer, and 120 decibels is a propeller aircraft. And we're talking about putting in a shelter that is going to be roughly 100 decibels, right next to a subdivision. So we just ask for some consideration in that. And if you know, if this is kind of, sounds like maybe this has happened all very quickly, that maybe you would take some, you know, time to give it some thought, and then maybe let, if you're, you know, dead set on this property that backs up to a subdivision, maybe let some of the, give a chance for the other homeowners to find out about it and, you know, voice their opinion as well. That's it.
Thank you. Who would like to come up next? Yes, sir.
It's James Jeffrey, 537 Howell Way. Have some handouts here for you. Pretty much reiterating exactly what everybody else has already said.
Thanks, sir.
You're totally wrong. People do not want to be around the dog pound. If you notice all cities, where's the dog pound? On the edges.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Kind of have it listed as 1 and 1A, so if you want to go there first. This is all from Google Maps. So if you go with picture 1, I walked out there to that area. It was supposedly going to be the dog area. I talked to the owner's son. He told me approximately where he thought it was going to be. But somehow he already knew that the dog park was going to be there. Now, I kind of reiterate, it seems like everything else goes so slow through here, but this dog park, boy, it sure is going through fast. Or not dog park, but, all right, so anyways, I'm standing in the dog park, not on the edge, and if you make that out, that's 65 feet, that house. That's our houses. This is that house. You go to number 2. If you go to the pictures, it's kind of hard to, let's go to 3A first. One of the woods. Now, if you look in that picture closely, right here is a little white thing, and right here is another one thing. Those are the goals that are in the park for the soccer. This is a measurement from that same place that I stood at to that, to where the park is. And that is, let's see, it's right on here, 250 feet. So again, speaking for the dogs, they're going to have kids out there playing. What do dogs like? They like kids. They're going to hear kids. They're going to bark. Train goes by, exactly same thing. Now, not only that, if you live there and you have dogs, these dogs are over here barking, they're going to make your dogs bark. We're all 55 and over. That's what this area is. That's why we moved there, is for it to be nice and quiet. We don't want dogs. I'm not a dog hater, but as you said, you already have land. You already bought it. If you look up on Google, you can do this anytime you want. How far does a dog's voice go? 1 to 2 miles. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Any questions?
Anybody have questions for Mr. Jeffrey? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Who else would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Susan Bell, and I live at 1193 Howell Way in Copperleaf Subdivision. And I understand the dog park is greatly needed. I'm not completely against it, but you're adding all this new expansion to the public works, plus you're adding the dog park in there, and you're worried about an access road to go out the back way, but you're not considering Memphis Street and the public safety. I guess you can see my leg. It's from a break, trying to go down Memphis Street. Memphis Street is 1.5 lanes. We have a kids' athletic, gymnastic building right down the street from that. It's narrow and people park along that way. There's a deep gully on the side. So, and then as you go through the subdivision has been required to expand the street in front of the subdivision, but that's only partway through. So by the time you build up what's going on down at the corner at Green Tea near the crossroads there, and by the time you add the dog kennel there and the feed from downtown to come in there, that traffic's going to be diverted to Memphis Street to get off Highway 51. And right now, in our subdivision, we have no place to walk, run, even take your dog out to use the bathroom in that whole area because of the streets aren't safe. The streets aren't safe in the subdivision, and they're certainly not safe on Memphis Street. So, you know, we're bringing in a lot of traffic and, you know, safety concerns to the people who live there. And if you go out and you kind of stay on that Memphis Street and kind of watch what's going on, there are a lot of people that use that street to go from the downtown area. I've seen people walking to the square. And there's runners, there's walkers, and I just don't think we're thinking clearly at who all it's going to impact. Yes, it's great for the pups. I fully support it, but I just don't think that without development on the other areas that connect to Memphis Street, I don't think we're getting a fair judgment here, regardless of noise level.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bell. Who else would like to speak?
I forgot one thing.
You did that the last meeting, Mr. Jeffrey.
The City of Hernando Noise Ordinance 2021, effective October 21st, 2021. Section 16-85, specific unlawful noise. Number 11. The keeping of any animal, bird, or fowl, which by causing frequent or long continued noise shall disturb the comfort or repose of persons in the vicinity, including the habitual barking of any dog, dogs, or sound made by any other permitted pets or domestic animals in a manner as to be plainly audible as heard from the property lines of the residents or from the adjacent public street or sidewalk.
Thank you.
Your lawyer.
Who else would like to speak?
Good evening, I'm Peter Zay, and my property actually backs up to the dog park. And for years and years, I've heard about the great dog park coming in at the Renaissance Park, and we've been very excited about it. We think y'all do a great job, and we know that this facility is greatly needed. And, but my concern is the barking with the dog animal shelter in my backyard. You know, when you got 50 dogs outside barking, and like the gentleman said, you're going to be listening to it, you'll hear it all night long. And, you know, I'm just not excited about that. There's an animal shelter off of Dunn Lane and Olive Branch, and I work for the county. When I'm in that area, if I'm within a half mile, you can hear all those dogs. And I've always wondered who could put up with that living in a house in a certain perimeter of that dog shelter. It's a rescue. And I always thought it was unfair that they put that project there. It was a house that got donated and they turned it into a rescue, but I always thought it was unfair that they did that to the neighborhood around them. And I kind of think y'all are doing that to us because in a way, I feel like y'all have already got your minds made up to buy the land. And I feel like not enough consideration has been given to the neighborhoods. There's not one dog park in the county that's next to a residential area. If you look at all of them, they're in either commercial areas or they're, like they said, on the outskirts, but they're never right there adjacent to a neighborhood. I spoke with some of the residents back here, just in passing. Nobody knew about this. And I feel like if I was a business moving to the area and I wanted to change the dynamics of it, I would feel it'd be my duty to do some type of variance or something and let everybody within a certain parameter know of the changes. This is just a tip of the iceberg. These are just a few people that know about it. I can promise you, nobody else knows what's going on with this dog park. And it's like the last person said that, you know, we've been talking about the animal shelter for years. Nothing's really moved forward with it. We understand that. I know it's a process, and I totally understand that. But why have all of a sudden we got to push this new new dog park at a brand new facility? Basically, within 3 weeks, y'all proposed it, and you're trying to buy it at the same time. And I just don't think that that's.
Let me clarify for the record. We got a location for the animal shelter. It's behind Renaissance Park, down by the dog park.
Yes.
West of the skating ring. We done spent $84,000 prepping it, so we had a location. It didn't just happen overnight. The overnight part is where the movement part is. But we had a location.
That's what I was referring to.
I want to make sure that
it just seems like in the last 3 weeks.
I want to make sure we had a location. We got a location.
I found out about it 3 weeks ago, and I called the mayor, and I didn't realize it was on the board meeting for that day. You know, I showed up for the meeting. It just seems like this is getting pushed so fast, and I feel like not everybody has had the proper that has had the proper opportunity to hear what's going on and let everybody find out and get a consensus of what everybody likes. And you know, if that's what everybody wants, then I guess I'm fine with it. But I don't think everybody really knows what's going on with it. As far as the cost, it's you got to look at, you got $150,000 for the land. $84,000 was already spent. I understand it could be used for a project down the road, but right now it's a pipe dream because there is no project down the road. So it's $84,000 that's going to waste until you decide to do something. But right now there's nothing in the works for that. In addition to that, we talked about you still got to put the road in. The site that we're at Renaissance Park has sewer, water, and electricity already to it. This piece of property, I know where it is, has none of that. It's out there, but all that still has to be brought into it. The current site at Renaissance Park has a gravel drive. I didn't know, does it have to be asphalt? Because, I mean, a lot of the animal shelters like Gwynn Road, it's just gravel road. I don't know if that's an expense, $200,000 or $135,000 that has to be spent. I think those are some areas that need to be reconsidered. But it does have a gravel road going to it. It can service, it can solve the problem today. I'm just concerned because I feel like that, I know that y'all have said this thing's gone on for a long time. I know everybody wants to push forward with it. I think by buying more property, you got to get it appraised. You're putting everything off. You're adding more expense because you're going to spend, you also, the drive going into this property is quite long. You had to go all the way around the current, the access road that's there now. It goes all the way around the current utility building from what I can see. It's a pretty lengthy road, so whatever cost you're going to spend at the Renaissance, if you're saying to spend money there, you're going to do the same for the one at Whitfield Drive. Plus bring in utilities, sewer, and water. And we all know today that's very expensive. Thank you for letting me speak.
Mr. J, what's your address?
1550 Robertson Road. We've been there about 20 years. We live on one of the properties that backs up to the soccer field off
Yes,
of
sir.
Robertson Road.
Gotcha.
We're kind of in the city and in the county. I think we got 2.5 acres in the city and 2 acres in the county.
Yes, sir.
And even though we got soccer fields that separate us from this proposed dog park, we hear all the sounds and the whistles and stuff, and we love it. I mean, that doesn't bother us. We love hearing the kids playing, like at the ball fields is great. And some people have asked, well, if you got the soccer fields in the way, isn't that far enough? Have you ever been on the lake fishing and there's a guy all the way across the boat, on the lake on a boat, and they're having a small conversation? You can hear every word they say. It's kind of the same thing. The voice is just, it's kind of a low area, and all the sound and voices just carry right over. And I love listening to kids. I can listen to 500 screaming kids, but 5 barking dogs would just drive me crazy. Listen to that all night long. So, thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Yes, ma'am.
Denise Ferris. I live at 523 Holloway in Copperleaf. And the one question that I didn't hear asked was, why aren't we using the property that we've already spent $84,000 for? What is wrong with that place that y'all had to go look for other land?
So I think, we have definitely received feedback from the current animal shelter director that they feel like it's, dark, off the road, it's like not in a very developed area, so that was one, criticism. They didn't know if they would feel safe going there at nighttime or early morning hours. Additionally, Renaissance Park is intended to be a developed park at some point, where we have a master plan that's currently under development, coinciding with a group called Kimley Horn is developing a master plan for that property. So it would be directly adjacent to potentially, baseball fields, football fields, all those things.
But not homes.
But not homes.
Not
No, ma'am.
residents.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm just.
I've backed up to creating noise for, and I certainly could understand a security, but we do have lights, we do have other things that could make them feel more secure without putting them in our neighborhood, which, we all support having it, but not having it in our backyard. And it is literally in our backyard. And there's no doubt, they told you that other cities don't do this, so why would Hernando do that to us? So, I know it's a big decision, and it's a lot of money, but why are we spending more money?
Yes, if you would come up to the podium. Anise, were you finished? I don't want to cut you off if you weren't finished. But you should address the board, not the audience. Yes.
I just, there are lots of concerns. Okay, I keep hearing noise, 500 dogs. South Haven Animal Shelter has almost 300 dogs in their care. This new animal shelter is going to have 35 maximum. It's going to be, the way things were in the past, animal shelters were an eyesore to be hidden back in the back behind everything, behind the jail, behind buildings in an industrial area. But with modern thinking, everything has changed. It's like up in the north, okay, animal shelters are adoption centers. They're not a horrible little building that smells bad, that has a really loud, a horrible barking nuisance. Doug Thornton is the architect on this project. Doug is a green architect. He and I have worked with the ASPCA, several veterinarians. We've studied acoustics, how to make quiet, how to build the shelter based on modern animal shelter best practices. This is not going to be the ugly little building that's in Olive Branch. It's not going to be the horrible, humongous animal shelter that is in South Haven, that when you open the door, the smell knocks you like in the face. This is going to be more like, this is going to be an adoption center. My vision and with modern animal shelters, they don't even say shelter anymore. It's an adoption center. It's a place where our communities come together to teach children kindness, to teach children charity, to bring in families, to improve our communities overall. The new trend is to put it right in the middle of the city. It's not to hide it away. But so the noise is not going to be an issue. There is not going to be a smell because we have Doug Thornton, because he has designed this and he has done his research and he has worked very, very hard. He has redone this at least 4 times. I mean, he and I have spoken to my veterinarian multiple times. We have gone over this and over this and over this. This is not going to be an ugly little metal building that smells so horrible, nobody wants to go there. People don't want to go to animal shelters because they're sad. They're depressing. They use the cheapest materials everywhere, so they're loud, they're drafty, they're cold. Nobody wants to go to them. That's why with this new modern thinking, like up north in Pittsburgh, they've got like beautiful buildings with beautiful, beautifully colored rooms, and there's all kinds of science, like the lady pointed out when she referenced the article from the ASPCA or Best Friends, whatever. It's a whole new way to think. And when I was hired to bring an animal shelter to Hernando that we could be proud of. And that's what I've strived to do, because Hernando is my home. I love it. This is going to be something that's good for Hernando if we don't make it something bad. It shouldn't be something that's hidden away. It's not going to be loud. It's not going to be terrible. It's going to be a good thing. And as far as traffic, no matter what you build, it's going to increase the traffic. And I guess I don't understand exactly. My thinking was that this was going to go on the other side of Public Works. I was thinking that Public Works is going to be between the subdivision and the shelter location. That's a ways away. I mean, I don't know what the scale, I went out there and I walked and I'm like, you can't see houses over there. All I can see is Public Works, the gym, all that stuff. I'm just not seeing where it's in anybody's backyard. I would love to see that. I would love to understand it, because that's not my understanding.
And I respect what you, I've been on this board working for the good animal shelter ever since from day one.
I know.
And you were there when we had this site, but all at once now the site is no good. That's my biggest problem. We done did all this site preparation and everything, but now we didn't say and nobody talked about how this building was gonna look, because everybody knew this was gonna be a nice building. Nobody talked about that. Am I correct, fellow Alderman? Nobody talked about the design. We all proud of the design. We strictly talking about location.
But we are talking about the design. They're saying, they're worried that it's going to be loud, and I'm telling you, it's not, because Doug Thornton has done he's done the studies on acoustics and how to make it quiet. It's not going to be loud.
We're talking about location.
How can dogs outside not be loud?
Well, there's not, okay.
Train and children.
So we can't get into debates between people and
Sorry.
back and forth.
Sorry.
So all comments must be addressed to the board.
Okay. Dogs outside, I've been doing this. I've been walking dogs. I've been feeding dogs. I've been running the shelter for almost 6 years. And they are loud when you first come in the morning, because they've just woken up, they're hungry, they want to go outside. They're loud inside the building, okay? We feed them, they're quiet, they take a nap, and pretty much, I mean, you may have one or two barking, but it's not just like constant barking. It's not a noise issue. We do not have a noise issue. I mean, you could ask some of the firemen if they're here. But noise is really not an issue. And again, we're only going to have maybe 30 dogs at the most. I mean, they don't all bark at the same time.
Okay.
I mean, all dogs are different.
Yeah, man, we can move on.
Thank you, Susan.
I'll just say one thing. We admire your vision. We want the same thing. We just don't understand why the push all of a sudden to put it in another location. Sure.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Andrew. This
Very
is
quickly.
something that okay. The issue, okay, when the Renaissance Park location, when the area next to Renaissance Park was chosen, it was the best of a lot of bad choices. All the choices were horrible. That was the best one, and that was horrible. That land is wet, it's mucky, it's soggy, okay? Like, they spent $84,000, which I still don't understand, on a very tiny little area, okay? Like, okay, if you put the building on that area, all of our play yards are gonna flood.
Correct? It's
I'm
okay
sorry?
to spend another $150,000 taxpayer money.
I'm
It's okay.
saying,
It's okay, that's all I know.
respectfully, I'm saying, adding more money to
I'm through with that. I'm through with that.
Thank you, Susan.
problem worse does not make it better. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Any other
Taxpayer
citizens?
money, I'm through.
You are finally getting to come up.
Yeah. Then I'm gonna go eat. Nobody told me it's gonna be this long. You know, I don't have a problem with dogs. I'm not a dog lover. I don't have a dog. I don't wanna listen to dogs barking all the time, okay? And she says we're gonna have a maximum of 35 dogs. Well, if you take only 10% of that, 3 to 4 dogs out there barking, that's gonna disturb us, okay? When I moved into this Copperleaf, it was because it was quiet. There was water in my backyard. I told the person, I said, there's water in my backyard. He said, it's not a problem. It's all been graded and everything else. You'll never have water problem again. It took me a year to get that water problem solved, simply because they told me that it was okay. Everything was okay. Just like they're saying about this dog park. Everything's gonna be okay. It's not supposed to be next to a residential area. You had a place. Let them take it to Renaissance Park where they originally started. That doesn't affect neighborhoods. There's no neighbors around them. And I agree with all the people here. Everybody wants a dog park. I understand that. Let them have it, but not in my backyard. And by the way, I live at 1165 Howell Way.
Could you tell me your name again?
Raymond Steiner.
Yes, sir.
And really, I agree with just about everything that everybody said, and they took all my thunder because you let them all come up first. But, you know, I do agree with all of them. We don't need it in our backyard.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
One thing. I'm Kay Valentine. I live at 697 Fairway Trail, and I can sympathize with him with water problems. I've been there 23 years, and I'm still fighting it. I won't tell you, I paid almost as much for the water problem as what we paid for the house back then. But I think nobody wants the dog shelter in their yard, in their backyard. But we've got to have a dog shelter. If we don't have a dog shelter in this town, there's going to be dogs and cats in everybody's yard. I mean, we have a wonderful operation with the shelter now that tries their best to take care of all these loose dogs. And that's because two things: sorry owners, and Mississippi does not have a neuter and spay law. And that's definitely another subject for another day. But I have been here for 23 years. 6 years ago, I got introduced to the animal shelter. And at that time, they were talking about a shelter. And it's time for Hernando to make a decision and to do something. And I can understand, Mr. Miller, your concern. I really can. I understand the same thing. I thought the same thing when it was first mentioned. But we're accomplishing nothing to start with. This dog shelter was not going to be in Renaissance Park. Remember? Renaissance Park didn't want it there. So we were moved to, what is it? You know, it was city-owned land, but it wasn't actually considered Renaissance Park. So we got kicked out there. And then now then, where they put us, and as Susan said, it was the best of a whole lot of terrible locations. Well, now then, we find out that the soil is not worth anything over there. It's going to be wet, it's going to be muddy, it's going to be a continuous mess. And if we have a new shelter, then this is just continuous work, trying to keep it clean with dogs going out and in and being walked and being exercised. And trying to keep dogs, even on a rainy day such as today. I mean, I have a dog, and as you walk in my door right now from my backyard, you can see footprints all along my floor of where my dog has come in. So we can imagine if we do this with every dog that's being out there. So I understand the concerns for both locations, but it's time for us to do something. And I know that's an awful situation with y'all, but we've all heard dog shelter, dog shelter. And of course, we have a dog park. We have a wonderful dog park down there in Renaissance Park. But the plan was to have a shelter close to it. But then they put you way back in the woods where I don't think there is a road to it right now. I mean, someone said there was a gravel road to it. Is there a gravel road to this place?
There is gravel back there, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. But I know that it's wet and marshy. So in other words, we're just in the middle of a marshy, swampy area. And I'm certainly not anybody that's educated to say anything about how much it would cost, but I can have a pretty good feeling it's going to cost a lot, because I just spent $12,000 on my backyard last year, and I still have problems, and I'll be calling him back in the next two or 3 weeks. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm Susan, 1193 Highway. This lady says that there's not going to be any odor or anything like that. I've never been in a vet or an animal shelter anywhere, the zoo, where there's not a smell. Got a dog at the house myself. She can be in the next room. I can tell when she does something, you know. So I don't know how you going to keep that odor. And then the acoustics, well, that guy needs to be building everything if he can silence the sound of them dogs. I'm telling you, cats don't make too much noise, but the dogs do. And I know you called a roll call out there a while ago or something, each person or whatever.
Yes, sir.
So you, the mayor, elected officials from all of us people out here and yourselves, I'd just like for you to ask for a show of hand, who wants this in their backyard, including yourselves, being y'all elected officials too. And just, let's get a show of hands of who wants this in their backyard. I'd just like to see it, including yourselves.
Is there anybody here that wants it in their backyard? All right. We got a few hands, but not many, to
Now the
your
other way.
point.
Now I ask the other way. Who don't want it in the backyard?
Who doesn't want it in their backyard? Okay.
Well, nobody up there that's elected now raised their hand. Either way, so.
They'll vote shortly.
Huh?
They'll vote shortly, and you'll know.
They'll vote shortly? Okay.
If a motion is made, for sure. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right.
Can you just reiterate to her that we have nothing against what she's doing or the building?
Yeah, I think we all,
She's still one apple.
Yeah.
We're thinking that that's not
Yeah.
what we're doing.
yeah, I think everyone is ready to build an animal shelter for certain. So, and I understand that, the people in your neighborhood don't want to annex their neighborhood. I think that's the crux of it. So, is there some?
And I just want to make it clear, we've certainly considered a lot of the things that y'all have said this evening already. And I've visited the site. It is certainly not the intention to have the kennels right up next where that silt fencing is. You're talking about a 3.7 acre parcel of land that we would be able to work with. You'd have, potentially, we could have landscape buffering that would be in there. I would ask where the current location is, the nearest residence is Country Haven, probably, or?
Yeah. There is one house between them and Country Haven.
Okay.
Yep.
It would have to come, it would have to come from somewhere, certainly. But we also have people that have generously donated to the construction of this animal shelter as well.
We'll keep order, keep talking.
So I would just ask, do we have currently, with where our current animal shelter is, have we had a noise complaint called in to our existing animal shelter?
Chief, can you answer that? Any other questions or concerns on this board?
I guess my question is, we don't think Renaissance Park is the best option. We don't think Whitfield Drive is the best option. Is there a third option?
Please do come up, Judy.
I'm not your normal speaker, so forgive me, but we did suggest another place at one time, the industrial park. And then our former mayor, and I know Alderman Miller, everybody, we only had a few choices to pick, correct? We chose that because we couldn't do the industrial park. But if I'm not mistaken, doesn't the Public Works back up to that subdivision? Wouldn't we be on the other side of that cove?
No, the land that the board is talking about right now is between Public Works and Copperleaf. It's the flat area behind Public Works.
That's where we surveyed back on the other side, I thought wouldn't look.
Maybe you could show her the picture.
Yeah.
Okay, I can go see it again for myself, but thank you.
I don't think Nestor we don't have a way to put it up there unless it's digital, do we? Okay. Yeah.
You can pull it up on Google Maps, it's right there.
So the piece, just so everybody knows, and I think the people in Copperleaf know, there is a flat area where Mr. Williams has been cutting down a hill that was there due north of our Public Works building, and that's the 3.7 acres. It's basically all the flat area he has created back there behind Public Works to the north of it.
So
Yes, Tina.
So it's where Scooter's Gym is, and then there's the Public Works, and then there's the flat area that's right there? Across from.
It's behind Public Works.
It's behind.
So, yeah, it would be, there's land behind Scooter's Gym. It's part of that parcel, but it's the part to the left that's already been made flat. There's a 10-acre parcel that goes all the way out to Memphis Street. It runs long behind Scooter's Gym and everything, and it's the piece of that that's closest to the railroad track, if that helps you. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't bring it up, but once you start developing a road down through those trees, is that what you're talking about?
No, I think the idea was that the land, it would drive through the, no, it would drive through the Public Works parking lot and use that as the road to get there. Yeah.
There's so many
Yes, Pete?
Mr. Mayor, isn't there also a fiber optic line that is serious taboo?
There is a fiber optic line.
Does that run with this property?
I don't think it's part of that parcel. It's not.
It ran down the whole backside of the Skeeter's gym and.
Do you know, can you tell me where that fiber is, Joe?
Yes, it does, but the part you're talking about is beyond the road that cable runs through. The cable actually
Yeah.
runs through part of that woods.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to be.
Yeah, you have to stay away from those for sure. Any more discussion from the board? Or is there a motion on this item? Is there a motion on this item?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to purchase the property in question.
There's a motion to purchase the property from Ben Piper. Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Alderman Robinson?
Yep.
Okay, there's a second from Alderman Robinson. We'll have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Robinson,
Yes.
Alderman Wicker,
Aye.
Alderwoman Ross,
Nay.
Alderman Piper,
Aye.
Alderwoman Lynch,
Nay.
Alderman Miller.
Nay.
That leaves me as the tiebreaker, doesn't it?
It does.
It's my first time to get to vote in years.
Remind you, did you raise your hand when you won the dog?
Here's what I would like to say on this topic. I hadn't thought about voting tonight. I was just sitting back and listening and trying to digest it all. I heard someone say earlier that the current piece of property is not a good location, and that the proposed one is not a good location. I'm gonna, and I don't think I want one in my backyard. I don't think anybody wants one directly in their backyard. Sometimes there is a third option. The problem is, we've been very worried that if we look at a third option, we're going to be accused of delaying the animal shelter. Would everybody agree to that to a degree? Because nobody wants to delay the animal shelter anymore. Me especially. I do not want to delay it. However, I don't want it built in the wrong spot. I don't think anybody wants it built in the wrong spot. Is that fair? And I'm not sure that either one of these are the right spot. So tonight we approved to build it. And that bid is good for 60 days. What I think we should do, and it might even, Alderman Miller, I'm looking down there at you, it might even cost more money.
Hey, you know,
I'm just talking before I give my vote.
Go and give your vote, cause
Okay.
it's no official engineering or nobody has said that was bad property. That was opinion.
Right.
So go on and make your vote, but don't put it that this bad property or bad location, because that
Okay.
has not been defined. That's been an opinion.
Well, in my opinion.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Say
Yeah.
it like that, cause
In
I
my
know how
opinion-
you finna vote. You're trying to justify your vote.
I certainly
Only do
am.
it.
I want everybody to know how I'm voting and why I'm voting.
Yeah.
So
Do it.
all of that is going to be Renaissance Park one day where the current pad is. And if you look at a map of that overall thing, it breaks up that park. It breaks it in half. There would be an animal shelter sitting right smack in the middle of our park. It's not a good location. I think we would regret it for the next 30 years. However, building it in y'all's backyard may not be a good idea either. So what I would propose would be that we very, very, very quickly find a spot that everybody can live with without delaying building the animal shelter. Nobody on this board wants to get accused of delaying the animal shelter. I know that. But I don't think either one of those are great locations. Maybe once again, we were taking the worst of bad options. Maybe that's what we were looking at. So I am going to cast a no vote. So that motion failed. Is there another motion from this board?
So we have we have 60 days to start for the bid. And based on other bids, I don't want to lose the bid that we have.
Nobody does.
Because, the other ones were a lot higher. So, we do want to move quickly, and I don't know the steps for that. I don't know how to find something.
You don't like where the pad is now. This that you bid on, does it not include a pad to build the building?
No, the land that we were just discussing, the new property by y'all, is already flat.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the area where the park is.
Yeah, that was a flat piece that was built by the city at the cost of $84,000. The pad was built for the animal shelter.
But you don't like where it's at because it's dead center. Got you. Why not move that then? Not move the pad, but make another pad somewhere else out there. That is an excellent place for it.
Well, I'm not in agreement that a park is an excellent place for a dog animal shelter.
The dog run.
A dog park is different than an animal shelter. They're different uses for sure. So, there is a rescue out at Shelby Farms, yes. Mhm.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Considering another location, how will we, the citizens, know where that location is so that we?
Well, I'm not sure the board's considering another location. It's still open for a motion, so, yeah.
Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to table this discussion into the first meeting in April and move on.
There's a motion by Alderman Wicker to table this to the first meeting in April. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
There's a second from Alderman Miller. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
Alderman Piper?
Aye.
Alderman Harris? Alderwoman Lynch?
Aye.
Alderman Miller?
Aye.
Alderman Robinson?
Aye.
Alderman Wicker?
Aye.
Alderwoman Ross?
Aye.
And it's tabled till April 1st.
5th.
April 5th, I'm sorry, first meeting in April. Okay, the next is to discuss, discussion and possible authorization of the Fieldhouse water line purchase. Joe Frank, would you help us on that one?
Okay, I guess through several meetings, we talked about this water line that was needed for the Fieldhouse project up on Green Tea Road. They went ahead and put the line in. They put the line in. It is installed and working like it's supposed to be. They're trying to get through with the building. And I think we can come back and consider either purchasing the line, providing some part of the cost of the line because of the upsizing of the line that we needed from an 8 to a 12-inch line. So I guess that's where we are on the agenda, since they have completed the line.
So
And
what's our next step in your opinion?
Guess you have to, I don't think you ever officially have voted to spend money on the line, so I guess if that's your intentions to purchase the line.
We couldn't because it would have been illegal. We can do it so now.
Now we can.
Yep. So.
I make a motion that we authorize the mayor and the engineer to go into negotiations with the field house on the purchasing of the pipe for an upgrade.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is item 29, the approval for a visa for the fire department with a limit of 5,000. The users will be the chief and the assistant chief.
So moved.
Second.
Hey, Mayor, I had a quick question.
Yes,
Sorry.
sir.
I know we had one of these with Public Works as well at our last meeting.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if there was, what's our goal that we're trying to accomplish with these credit cards?
Madam Clerk, can you answer that?
Yeah. More streamlined procurement for small items. A lot of places online,
Uh-huh.
and in-store is so much quicker with a credit card. And it's just a $5,000 limit, so, and I do review all of the statements and receipts.
Okay. I missed the discussion from the last meeting, so I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
I know that sometimes some people refer to them as P cards, more or less. They can be really, it's a really expensive way of purchasing.
Yeah.
So I just, don't know how often we're going to be using them, but
We pay the statement out every month, so there's no interest or penalties.
okay.
So we do watch that. And most of the vendors we go to are already tax exempt.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second on that.
We do.
Yeah.
Certainly not against the fire department having a credit card.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is to accept the addendum to video services franchise agreement with AT&T and for me to sign it. And just a very short history. If y'all will remember, y'all authorized us to hire Greg Fender to renegotiate that contract and to do an audit of AT&T and of C-Spire. The audit of AT&T came back clean. They've been paying us everything they should. And he changed our agreement a little to help it be more in the citizens of Hernando's favor. That's what I'm asking you to sign. Also, as part of that, he found over $50,000 that was owed to us by C-Spire. And we have sent them a demand letter. He's already negotiated with them. We should get the check soon. And the good news about that is he also put in that demand letter that they are going to pay the $10,000 we would owe him for his services. So we'll have an extra little over $50,000 coming in the next couple of weeks from C-Spire because of a good agreement like we're about to approve here with AT&T.
Like them, Karen.
Yeah.
Motion to approve?
Second.
So motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Next is to approve the utility adjustment docket.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.